All right, the Ryder Cup is only half an hour old. I have to say, I haven't felt this European since the Troika came to town and gave us several billion euro to bail us out on, Sheahan. We are already pumped.
I'm fist pumping already this morning. Dustin Johnson has missed a putt from like 2 centimetres away.
It was about
wasn't
a
quite,
foot and a half, 2 feet. It was a total gimme.
Nothing makes me feel more European than seeing Dustin Johnson fail miserably on our television screens, beamed around the world. I'm declaring it now, the USA have bottled the Ryder Cup.
It might be a bit early doors for that on. People are always sort of sneery about the Ryder Cup until it comes around, and then once it cracks in, you're all in.
Completely. I will put my hands up and say I sneer about it. Yeah. 63 days of the year on a Ryder Cup year, but I'm all in now. It's great. Like the buzz around that first tee is amazing. And
well, that tee particularly now is absolutely incredible. Like the grandstand is sort of never seen before sort of territory. It's incredible. And Justin Rose got her underway for Europe just about 7:10 or thereabouts. He had a fairly incredible tee shot, landed it into a few feet from his approach and knocked it on down to go 1-up in the top match. And I don't have the exact standings to hand at the minute, but...
Well, Europe are 1-up in that. Justin Rose, John Ram, 4-ball at the moment. They're up against Tony Finau and Brooks Koepka. Who they had a better lie on the second green, it's fair to say, but again, they completely bottled us, is what I'm going to say, and Europe remain 1-up in that. It's all square in the other matchup that's already underway as a result of that complete cock-up from Dustin Johnson. We can see pictures of Patrick Reed and Tiger Woods just warming up a little bit. They tee off at 7:55, and I think the most glamorous pairing, they're up against Molinari and Fleetwood as well, which I guess from a European standpoint is fair, is as glamorous as we can get as Europeans this year, but it's not all about glamour, is it?
I mean, it is mostly about glamour, the Ryder Cup, I think.
Well, yeah, it is, but you know, we've seen players in the past do things that, like already Tyrrell Hatton looks like a man who is basking in this event, and you certainly wouldn't call Tyrrell Hatton a glamorous golf name, but just beaming from ear to ear as people are sarcastically cheering each and every one of his practice swings on the first tee. He looks like a man who's going to be the next Ian Poulter, despite the fact that Ian Poulter this week could
actually be himself.
Exactly, you know. But
I would definitely have been thinking to get sort of Poulter up there nice and early. It was interesting to see John Ram actually, because he's playing with Rose, and you assume a lot of that partnership is to do with the levels of experience, and there is one rookie, one experienced player in each of the European pairings for this morning session anyway, but you assume that's what it's all to do with. But Ram stands up, balls of steel, is giving it this one on the first tee, and like the crowd sort of roaring him down. It was and he
belongs here.
He nailed it as well. He's got that personality though, hasn't he? Like, he is going to be a superstar there this week, you assume.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's just born for this sort of event. Rory McIlroy as well, kind of more of a cheeky grin rather than a sort of Tyrrell Hatton full beam, because he's been here, he's done that before. But he loves this setting. Like, the commentators were saying, isn't it disappointing to hear a few of the jeers for the USA?
Oh, it's not.
No, it's not at all. It's absolutely
actually,
delightful.
I think the Americans would be disappointed if there wasn't a bit of jeering, and like, that's part and parcel of it. That's what the Ryder Cup is all about. I heard somebody say that it's for Ryder Cups you don't tend to get a lot of. Sorry, you do tend to get a lot of golf fans, clearly, but actually the mix of golf fans and just general sports fans who are sort of want to go in and see the event as much as anything else. There's a much heftier mix on the sort of sports fan.
Totally,
that you wouldn't normally get at a golf. We'll ask the lads, because we're going to be talking to Nathan Murphy and Joe Malloy drew the lucky straws this week and are over at Le Golf National, so we'll talk to them about it in a little bit. But why the hell don't they play a bit on Thursday?
I suppose the format just doesn't allow for it. It is fairly crammed in for the full 3 days.
Squeeze an extra day out of it. Like, it makes commercial sense, it makes spectator sense, it makes viewership sense.
I think
now you've gathered the vast majority of the best players on the planet in one location. Yeah, let them at it.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the 3-day nature of it all. I think it's one of those. It is the only golf tournament where you watch every single stroke, because every single stroke matters. And I don't know, I might have a little bit of an overload if we went into a 4th day. It's kind of like when Cheltenham reduced it from 5 days to 4 days. It suddenly compacted all the quality races into a tighter space, and therefore the week as a whole was much more enjoyable. And it has become much more enjoyable.
Oh, Tyrrell Hatton.
He's on the green.
Tyrrell Hatton, your man, your boy.
The thing is, you're watching it.
He's nailed his approach there in the first.
I'll trust your commentary.
He's within to about 8 feet there by my steady eye.
So he's made for this occasion. I called it early.
Did you pre coming on? Did you not say this guy's sort of Yeah,
but I changed my mind after his first tee shot.
So it is underway, and we're all pumped and we're excited about it, and we're going to keep you right across all the very latest events in the Ryder Cup as they... Oh, my word. That is an unbelievable approach shot from Justin Spieth. He's just lipped out with his approach shot. That was... a thing of beauty.
I feel like I'm watching Gogglebox right now. I'm just watching Adrian watch the Ryder Cup, which isn't a great experience.
Yeah. Well, I hope the viewers are sort of feeling slightly differently.
Well, they're watching me, watching you, watching the Ryder Cup, which is an even worse experience, I'd imagine.
It's Gogglebox Mark 2. Anyway, that's what we're going to do for the morning. We've got lots of other stuff to get to as well, and we'll give you a flavour of that. But we are going to be watching a lot of the Ryder Cup this morning. We're going to be going live till the Golf National as well. So do get in contact with us, by the way, if it's golf in your mind or anything else, on the hashtag or here on the YouTube or Facebook page or whatever you're having yourself. Do get in contact with us over the next little while as Owen sort of moves around the seat to try and get that Rory McIlroy put in the hole, but just wasn't for going. Right, we're going to get you across the sports back pages in just a moment's time. We're going to let you know what's going on there. It's a lot of Ryder Cup action, a few other bits and bobs too. We'll let you know about that very shortly. Owen's been in conversation with Kyle Hayes, PwC GPA Player of the Month. We're going to get his thoughts in just a little bit. We had a deep conversation last week about, I was going to say MMA, that's not quite accurate, and then I was going to say UFC, also not quite accurate. We had a conversation about Conor McGregor, and it pissed some people off. So we got a little bit of abuse, and we'll bring you some of that in a little while. That's Mean Tweets. Coming your way at about 8:25 thereabouts. Alan Quinlan's in studio, as he always is on a Friday. He's going to be discussing all things provincial derbies, obviously, this weekend. And the Ryder Cup is firmly in our view as well, as we hear from Joe and Nathan. Owen's giving me the nod here.
Well, there's just been a comment in already from Paul Reid saying, "Two ginger nerds, hashtag OTB AM."
Right.
A bit harsh for 7:46 AM in the morning, says producer Tommy. I'm glad somebody else thinks it's harsh.
Two fresh ginger haircuts as well.
If anybody, yeah, true that. I think anybody these days who gets excited by golf is immediately referred to as a dork or a nerd, and I'm totally fine with that because I often use that phrase myself to describe those people.
Yeah.
And you know, for this week, I'm certainly a golf nerd.
We're all on board. We're all on board with that. I mean, the two of the biggest geeks are out there, and we're going to definitely hear from them in a little bit. I'm looking forward to it. Oh, I'm not going to lie to you, but for the minute, time for the papers.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie. Championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.
Yeah, if it's abuse or sort of general commentary or whatever, we'll take it all. So keep it coming our way between now and just after 9 o'clock or thereabouts. But it is time to let you know what's happening in the newspapers. And I mentioned Ryder Cup pretty much dominating, certainly a lot of the broadsheets this morning. The Irish Examiner here, new order, Rose and Ram lead from the front as Bjorn mixes it up. It does strike me that a lot of the coverage of the Ryder Cup gets old pretty quickly, given that it's underway around about an hour or thereabouts already. But a shot from yesterday's delightful opening ceremony at the Golf National.
Yeah, delightful. I think is probably... I didn't actually see it, but just looking at some of the newspaper reports this morning, there was plenty of room to sneer at that opening ceremony yesterday.
There was a lot to sneer about. They did tend to be cringeworthy. I was at the 2006 Ryder Cup here, obviously, and I kind of thought it was jaunty and lovely and quite Irish and all that sort of stuff, but I could easily see how an audience watching in from abroad would have thought it was twee and cringeworthy. They do tend to be. It was pretty awful.
Was last night's particularly French?
I didn't watch a lot of it, no, but I did see they had a French singer came out, and she seemed pretty good. Like, she seemed like a good French.
And Kaiser Chiefs, of course, very French.
Yeah, but she was walking up and down the stage with all these like golfers sitting behind her who were not exactly into it, and it just all jarred a bit. But look you got to get through it. That's what it's all about. So that's the front page of the Examiner this morning. And reflections as well on Davy Fitzgerald, model behaviour, how Davy Fitz rediscovered his love of hurling in Wexford. And a lot of stories across some of those pages this morning about Davy Fitz particularly, and how the vast majority of the Wexford team at some point over the last couple of months, Davy's been sort of wavering about whether he would continue in the Wexford job or not. And they hopped in a bunch of cars en masse, drove down to his home down in Clare and said, listen, here's our commitment. We want you to sort of row back in. And he was obviously won over by it. It's a 4-hour trip each way, I think, was what they were saying. And like, you know, some of the players leech in talking about what a pain in the ass it is for them to have one-off trip to down to Clare. He's obviously doing it a couple of times a week. But yeah, I think everybody turned up in your door and going, hey boss, listen, we like you, come on back in.
It's
going to win you over.
It's you'd wonder as well how much what happened at the end of the season has changed Davy Fitz's mind as well, seeing a team like Limerick going on to win the All-Irelands, and given that Wexford have maybe not the depth that had come through from Limerick at underage level, but certainly excellent top-class underage teams coming through, particularly from under 21 level this decade. So he looks at what they're doing. It's not like that great Tipperary team going on to dominate. That hasn't happened. It's not like the great Galway team, if you can call them a great Galway team, doing back-to-back and potentially starting an era of dominance, or even the Kilkenny Renaissance, which we might fear is just around the corner. That hasn't started yet. So there is
absolutely
like a realistic possibility that Davy Fitzgerald can mould an All-Ireland winning team out of this Wexford crop in the next 2 seasons. So I think he's just been empowered by what he saw from John Kiley's men this summer, that there is belief for everybody. It's going to be such an amazing hurling championship again next year. It's just it's just what do we do before then to actually whet the appetite.
Watch the Ryder Cup on is kind of key today. He'll probably manage for, like, I can't see him out of management, Davy Fitz, for too long. Like, health permitting, he'll manage for another 20 years, I'm sure, before he sort of sidles off down the punditry route. Yeah,
the thing is, like, it's something that's often mentioned, but it's worth mentioning again, is like this straight transition that Davy Fitz had from his playing days to his inter-county setup days. So it's 30 years involved with top-level hurling, which to a lot of people is just too much in the pressure cooker, but for Davy Fitz, I suspect it's not enough.
Well, it's probably a bit different now. Like, he doesn't need to be out the side of the road sort of pucking the ball off the wall anymore, kind of putting the fear of God into his opposition rival goalkeeper like he used to do.
Yeah,
it's
true.
a slightly different dynamic now, you know. You don't need to be up at 5:30 pucking the ball off the
I need to be up at 5:30 to drive to Wexford.
Well, that's very true. Irish Times this morning, it is Ryder Cup here as well. A bit of joshing going on there between Eoin's favourite player, Justin Thomas, and Tiger Woods, who, to be fair to him, is tending a little bit on top. But Justin's there to the rescue to give him a little bit of grass for the noggin. Time for
Tiger
heroes
Woods
in Paris
is in trouble, I think. No, he's not. He's on the middle.
No, he's absolutely fine.
The cameras just zoomed in on the water. I was like, no way, is this going to be 2006 all over again? And then it just stopped zooming in, and
we could see the ball in its perfectly placed in position A. So Tommy Fleetwood is about to address his ball there now as well, and we'll let you know that in just a second. But yeah, the Irish Times, time for heroes in Paris, writes Philip Reid, who's over at Le Golf National this week. The fun is over, and it's time for the golf to start, but it's hard to call which team will emerge victorious. I presume the fun is kind of just beginning. It does strike me that with a lot of these papers, without getting too sort of geeky about it, that like they've got all the tee times obviously for the opening day, 4 balls and all that sort of stuff. They're a big feature in the front pages. Like, it's all kind of dead stuff really by the time. I don't know what the mean time for people buying their newspaper or consuming their newspaper is.
I would say between 7 and 9.
Yeah.
On the way to work, no?
Well, I'm saying that after 7:55, all this section down here at the right-hand side is sort of done and dusted. Some good shots and reflections as well on that fantastic opening ceremony at Le Golf National yesterday. The whatever the equivalent of the red arrows is, flying over there with the tricolour, red, white and blue, flying over the opening ceremony. David Ginola was the unusual choice of host yesterday. He did a pretty good job, I have to say. I thought he was pretty slick. He knew his lines, knew his cues, had a bit of personality about him. You needed somebody French there, obviously. This was the other thing. I mean, there isn't going to be much other French influence over the course of the week. So
no, I see in Malachi Clerkin's headline there, he does say that the person who was like doing the warm-up for David Ginola encouraged the crowd to make a lot of clap, which I just think that's cheap. That, you know, I laughed.
Somebody's expense on that, you know. English is not their first language. How good is your French?
If I said in French, let's please make a lot of clap, and they laughed at me, I'd be happy enough saying, you know what, I'm fine being the punching bag.
How good the clap?
Exactly.
There's been a lot of French lessons on OTB AM this week, as it turns out.
I've learned a lot.
Yeah. The Irish Independent this morning, McIlroy ready to roar is the headline here, with his rookie sidekick Olesen, as the two guys give each other a fist bump there. So they are out on the way in the last little while as well.
And Spieth and Thomas have taken the first hole there in their matchup.
So Casey and Hatton, I'd definitely assume that was a bit of a write-off that matchup, I have to admit. But yeah, an interesting pairing there between Thorbjorn Olesen and Rory McIlroy, the rookie obviously, and McIlroy, who is now a bit of a veteran almost of these things at this stage, and a veteran golfer. But Olesen is 28, so it's not he's a kid who needs to have his sort of hand held around as he goes. The other interesting story is away from the Ryder Cup that's on the back of the Irish Independent here, writes Sam Wallace, that Barcelona may not be able to afford Pogba January deal, which is an absolute nightmare for the guy, because it seems to all intents and purposes, if you read the fairly overt body language of this clip that's been doing the rounds during the week, like neither party is overly happy with it. It might take, it looks like the way Mourinho's going, and there's some more interesting stories that you'll have for us in just a minute that might sort of rubber stamp some of that. In fact, this one here from the Irish Daily Mail this morning. Mourinho raps young star over his attitude. So this is Jose Mourinho having a go at Marcus Rashford, who failed to do the exact warm down that he should have done at a game recently, and Mourinho's like, oh, this guy's attitude stinks. So there's all these players sort of racking up, and there's all these little bits of lines that are coming out of United at the minute that you assume are coming from a whole pile of disgruntled players, and you assume as well that at some point or another that is just going to end up being a split between Mourinho and the club sooner rather than later.
It has to be, doesn't it? Because the only other alternative here on the Pogba situation is that he gets word of the idea that he's not going to go to Barcelona. Now, if Juventus were to come up with the cash, I suspect Paul Pogba might like to go back there, to go back, and not to merely kind of rekindle his love for the club if that ever existed, but to play alongside Cristiano Ronaldo, at which point then they might be able to next season put together a real case for winning the Champions League. Granted, Cristiano Ronaldo will be another year older, but if Barcelona can't step up the cash, if Juventus isn't a live option this January, then Paul Pogba's got no option but to kiss and make up with Jose Mourinho.
Yeah.
Like, he's done enough to undermine his managerial kind of status over the last 7 days. And when I say done enough, I think it's just that attack press conference, which I really didn't like. I don't think a lot of people really did like that kind of undermining of Jose's management. That if he can do it that quickly on that scale, is there potential for him to make up as quickly on the other side of things? Well, the one big barrier to that is Jose Mourinho's capacity to forgive.
Well, that's the interesting part, right? He's supposed to be the adult in this conversation. You know, like, I mean that in like the sort of business sense of things. He's supposed to be the one who's able to step into it and go, right, look at, what's the problem here? The problem is I'm rapidly getting a whole bunch of disillusioned players. How do I solve that? Well, maybe I'll sit down and have a conversation with them and say, look, at what's wrong? What do you need from me? What can we do a bit better? Like, it's not as if we're having a conversation with a guy here, which is a slight difference in maybe in Rashford's case, with a guy who's not going to be in the team. Like, he starts every week. That's just the plain and simple of it. It's not a player who's disgruntled about not getting a game. So in that context, you know, sit down and figure it out. Like, why does it need to be all this sort of public over and back?
Yeah, well, it clearly shouldn't be this public over and back. And I will say that when it came to the public sort of storm this season between Pogba and Jose Mourinho, Paul Pogba started it. And I know that's quite a childish thing to say. Well, you started it, and I'm gonna come back at you and bring all my wrath in your direction.
Yeah.
But I think that there is enough to be said to defend Paul Pogba in terms of privately what has been said between Jose Mourinho and Pogba. The unhappiness with Pogba as a public figure, as an Instagram figure, as a millennial, so to speak. Yeah. That sort of stuff I don't really like. I think Jose Mourinho needs to adapt to modern human beings a little bit better. But ultimately, when it came to this thing being played out in the public, Paul Pogba rolled the dice first. It wasn't Jose Mourinho. And that either can lead to Paul Pogba coming forward and saying, look, I'm sorry, I see I've done wrong, or it's just going to strengthen Jose Mourinho's hand. He's a very stubborn man, and once he's got a strong hand, you'd imagine Paul Pogba's career is going to be in a tough place at Manchester United. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I just think all is said and done that regardless of how it came about or who threw the first punch, somebody's got to step in and go, this isn't working out. It's not. This is not what's
who's going to step in?
It's got to be Mourinho. Like, it's got to come from him. Like, what's the best thing for Man United?
But
who's asking that question?
Yeah, well, if there are such loggerheads, somebody stepping in can't be Jose Mourinho. Like, does Ed Woodward get involved in this? I can't see that happening.
So my point is, if it isn't Mourinho, Mourinho's got to leave.
Well, that's the thing. Or the other part, the key component in all of this that is definitely going to step in is Mino Raiola. And I can assure you that he is already having his word with Paul Pogba. And the thing is, like we said it before on the show, that I really do think that Raiola wants to get one more move for Paul Pogba before agents' fees are completely clamped down upon, and perhaps next summer with a new FIFA directive. So I think it's in his interest to get Paul Pogba out of the club. He wants Paul Pogba to be winning matches. Ultimately, the whole celebrity can only last so long if you're playing poorly. True. Or potentially, does this get to a stage where Paul Pogba's not playing at all?
Well, I mean, I don't know. My view is, I think that, and I wasn't of this opinion a few weeks ago, that it just seems that the constant trickle of disgruntled players, my view is that it's going to end in Mourinho leaving sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it is.
I can't see any other outcome.
There is a growing list at this point.
Tigger Forum has been in touch. He says, don't take the bait, Eoin. I mean, I don't know what I've been baiting you about.
Yeah, you haven't baited me about anything. It's already like 8:05 and you haven't said anything to anger me yet, which is a good start to my Friday morning. So feeling happier than usual this Friday morning. Let's take you through some of the rest of the papers. The Herald leads with Thorne in his side, or in the US side, sorry. World number 2 Rose partners John Ram to take on Koepka and Finau in the opening 4 balls at the Ryder Cup. Back page of the Mirror this morning is the greatest show on turf. Bjorn backs Europe stars to become legends and put Tiger out to grass. And new way, Barca refused to meet £200 million valuation for unhappy Paul Pogba. Now, the back page of the Irish Daily Star this morning also goes with the golf and with the Paul Pogba story. A Pog's dinner, says the football element, in slams feuding Reds ace. So Paul Pogba has made Manchester United a joke and will be sold in January, according to Paul Ince. He believes that the club are now a laughingstock and something like this would never have happened under Sir Alex Ferguson. Of course, it never would have come to blows under Alex Ferguson because he just simply got rid of him. And in the golf, it's Europe holding on for a hairdo.
Patrick Reed is in the water on the first.
Yes, get in there.
Oh, the Ryder Cup has landed.
It certainly has.
My word. Francesco Molinari had just hit a sweet approach shot on the first against Reed and Woods, and then Reed follows it up by landing in the drink.
And how's Tiger doing on that hole? You keep an eye on Tiger while I go through the rest of the back pages. The Sun goes with Shock and Moore, Jose's Jones and Bailly quip upset stars. So this is the other elements, him kind of giving out about Phil Jones and Eric Bailly being the last 2 penalty takers. He knew he was going to be in trouble, despite the fact that Richard Keogh was on penalties for Derby County at that point as well. I think if their centre back is stepping up, you can't really give out too much about your own centre backs having to step up to take a penalty. The rest of the dressing room is upset by this comment. You've also got rookie 4 Bjorn punt on new boys. That's of course Rory McIlroy there on the back in his 4th Ryder Cup. And then just a couple of more back pages for you this morning. The Racing Post goes with Rise and Shine, Ryder Cup rivals hard to split in early exchanges, and that has proved to be the case at the moment so far. I think Europe are 1-1, USA are 1-1.
Yeah, it looks
it's all square in the other.
The scoreboard there in the last couple of minutes. Your boy Hatton has just not run as close as he should have done.
Right, maybe he's crumbling under the pressure, maybe. Back page of the Guardian then is let battle commence. Bjorn cites opportunity to follow Europe's greats.
Yeah, so that's sort of where we're at. The Ryder Cup is ongoing. Justin Spieth has a putt here to have the hole.
Is that what you're calling their duo, Justin Spieth?
Justin Spieth, that's exactly a slip of the tongue there. But so Justin Spieth has
Jordan Thomas has got a better ring.
Yeah, see, I mean, you get everywhere, Eoin, is the short story.
Yes, 2 Kerry jerseys at the Ryder Cup, side by side. They usually pop up in fits and bursts at the Masters, obviously.
Just a quick one while it's on the screen there. So Europe are 1 up in the top match, Rose and Ram against Koepka and Finau. It's all square between McIlroy and Olsen and Johnson and Fowler. Spieth and Thomas are 1 up, and Casey and Hatton, and Molinari and Fleetwood up against Reed and Woods are currently on the first green. So that's the current state of play. Well, yeah, you boys get it. Is it more? I wonder. Is it worse than? I wonder. Is that worse than the sort of mashed potato brigade?
What? Okay, this is it's like somebody just tweeted in and was like, "Oh, Owen's not taking the bait," and you're like, "Let me just think of something absolutely ridiculous to say." How is that in any way comparable to the mashed potato?
It's so cliched and like expected, and like it's. We go to the Ryder Cup. Let's get our Kerry jerseys on, and like, come on, let's give it a break.
How does it in any way compare to the chauvinistic nature of shouting mashed potatoes?
It's just as infuriating is the point. Like it's.
Is it? That gets you angry. That gets you angry.
Look, I can't say it gets me angry, but I am a bit.
Well, he said it's infuriating.
I'm a bit fatigued by it. Let me change my description there.
What about mashed potato? How does that make you feel?
I'm in the same sort of territory. I'm like, it's needless. Both are fairly needless.
You're sickening. That's probably your worst take.
And also, do they bring sort of 3 Kerry jerseys each?
Why?
Because they just wear the same Kerry jersey all week.
Why are you saying it's the same people? It's a strong golfing county. There's
that's all what makes it worse.
What?
That makes it worse. I mean, I'm not for a second suggesting that the mashed potato guy is the same guy at every tournament. So I'm assuming there's also different Kerry fans who do this thing. I just think, like,
if I was at the Ryder Cup, I'd be wearing my Kerry jersey.
Would you really?
Yeah, 100%.
No, you wouldn't.
Yes, I would. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah, sure, I'd be famous. I'd be famous on the internet right now if I was wearing my Kerry jersey.
We'd be discussing what an asshole you are right here, right now.
It's as long as people are talking about me, it doesn't matter if they're calling me an asshole, basically.
So that is the very, very latest with the Ryder Cup. We've lots of that coming your way over the course of this morning, and we're going to a little bit later on catch up with Alan Quinlan as well. He's going to talk all things rugby for us a little later in the day. But there was a tweet that jumped out at me a little bit. It's 8:10 by the way on this Friday morning. We are delighted to have you with us, and we do want to hear from you as well, so keep your comments coming in, whether it's on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, whatever you're having yourself, do get in touch with us. There was a tweet that jumped out at me this morning from respected golf journalist Alan Shipnock. "My greatest achievement," he said, "on in journalism will always be going the entire week without posting a single photo or video of the first tee grandstand."
Well,
Respected golf journalist Alan Shipnock.
Let's remind ourselves that Alan Shipnock is the guy who wrote the piece that the Ryder Cup
Don't undermine my point now.
Is no longer
Don't undermine my point.
a thing. He says that there's no point even contesting the Ryder Cup because the USA are just going to walk home in the next 10 years every single time.
Nathan Murphy, respected golf journalist Alan Shipnock refusing to get involved with first tee grandstand photographs.
Good for him. Isn't he great to be in that position?
Joe Malloy looks like he is enjoying this golf tournament big time.
Joe's buzzing.
Joe, it's Friday morning, man. It's the Ryder Cup is on. This is good stuff. Right, before we get into it, we've just been updating our viewers and listeners on what's happening. What's going on?
So Francesco Molinari's just holed a birdie putt on the first. So Europe.
Right.
Water. Tiger Woods very nearly ended up in the water with his approach, but couldn't hold his birdie putt. So that means that Europe are now up in 2, USA are up in 1, and one match is all square. It's been a pretty dramatic opening morning from the quality of play from some of the best players in the world. The approach shot in the first from Justin Rose, the approach shot in the first from Dustin Johnson, Jordan Spieth hitting the flag with his approach. There's just been exceptional. Likes of Tony Finau, Toby Arnoldson ending up in the water off the first was obviously not what himself and Rory McIlroy wanted. Maybe a bit of surprise that Olsen teed off ahead of McIlroy there, but it's very, very early stages. But the sheer quality of the golf already is somewhat surprising. You sort of feel it might take a little bit of time to warm up. The atmosphere around the first tee, we spent all week sort of building it up and hyping it up, and to be honest, it was a little bit flat because compared to 4 years ago, Glen Eagles, where the stand was right in around all the tee box, this time you felt a little bit back, and it was quite subdued. There was a little bit of chanting here and there. There were a few boos for some of the American players, but there was no great tension. It just didn't build up into the crescendo that you expected this morning. Now, maybe it was that they had one of those typically very annoying MCs/DJs from about 2 hours beforehand playing terrible music, and everybody was up at 4 o'clock this morning to get here in time for the opening tee shots. Maybe they're all just a bit tired, but it definitely wasn't the sort of theatre that we thought it was going to be. It was still packed. There was still around that first hole. There was clearly a huge players, but maybe not that special experience a lot of people thought it was.
Yeah, that's kind of, I'm surprised to hear that, and I did watch a bit of it on the TV. It came across, as you've been pointing out, Nathan, it is very much a TV occasion. It came across actually pretty well on the TV. It looked like it was pretty decent. John Ram was somebody who we sort of expected all week is going to be a good Ryder Cup player. He's got that sort of mentality about him, that sort of fieriness about him, I suppose, and he was up on the first tee giving it socks.
Yeah, that was an interesting dynamic in itself, in that John Ram started urging the European fans to make more noise, and then as he stood over the ball, Justin Rose told everybody to just quieten down a bit, but Ram's caddy started telling them to make the noise again. So he teed off with plenty of noise behind him, and it didn't make any difference. It's funny, there's 4 European rookies out there this morning. He doesn't feel like a rookie. He's had such an incredible 18 months getting into the top 5 in the world, and he just showed no nerves whatsoever. One of the more interesting storylines that might develop this morning is with Dustin Johnson, who you saw hit his approach on the first 2 within 3 feet probably, and missed the birdie putt. He has changed his putting grip within the past few days. And even yesterday, when some of the journalists were talking to him, he wasn't sure which grip he was going to go with. So he went with a cross-handed grip. For the first time in his entire life, there didn't seem to be any actual reasoning behind it. But to do that on the eve of a Ryder Cup seems a massive risk. It's reminiscent of Phil Mickelson, was it in 2004, where he changed clubs on the eve of the Ryder Cup. And it didn't go down well in the American camp, to put it mildly, to take such a big risk, to make such a big change at that stage. Just doesn't make any sense. And Dustin Johnson probably just rammed home because he missed that putt from, 3 feet.
Yeah.
Interesting match with McIlroy and Olsen. Olsen looked very nervous. Of all the players, probably looked the most nervous on the tee this morning.
How has Dustin Johnson been putting this season? Is there any sort of sense that this might have been the correct move at all? Because it seems, obviously, it's terrible timing to make huge adjustments. Well, it's great timing for us to make a huge adjustment to your game. Was there anything that you've seen this season that would suggest that this was coming at all?
No, he's the world number one. He just returned to world number one last week. He had an opportunity of winning the Tour Championship just a week ago, or of winning the FedEx Cup. So he's had another brilliant season. So to make such a radical change this week of all weeks just doesn't make sense. But he obviously felt there was something very, very wrong and wasn't comfortable with his putting stroke. But you would think, wait another week. He's probably got 3-4 weeks off after this. You can bet it in for the next 4 months if you want and get used to it. If they go and win this match, it won't be a storyline at all. It will just be a simple change, and it's worked out, and every other part of his game looks as though it's in absolute top order. As Tiger Woods hits a brilliant approach to the bunker.
No, from the second tee.
From the second tee. So that's going to be a birdie opportunity for Tiger on the second. Remember, they're one down to Molinari and Fleetwood. But yeah, Tiger, his tee shot off the first for a split second looked as though it may reach the water. He got lucky with that, hit a good approach there, and it looks as though his game is backing up exactly what we saw in Atlanta last week. Actually, first it was interesting in that all week we've been hearing that the water was probably out of range because nobody was going to take driver, that everybody would be taking iron, and everybody did take an iron, or certainly maybe you might have had the odd 5-wood in there. But Tony Finau hit the water 3 iron, 100 yards, and all he was saying on the tee was wow. Obviously wasn't expecting quite the adrenaline rush that was there that saw him hit it so far. But I just think you look at the quality of players out in the course, there's just going to it's set up brilliantly for a dramatic weekend.
Yeah, 2.5, 1.5 is what I'm thinking, Nathan, for these 4 balls. Before we wrap, what's your prediction?
Who are you saying 2.5, 1.5, 2? Yes, I think Johnson and Fowler will win their match against McIlroy and Olsen. I think Spieth and Thomas will win their match. I'm going to go 3-1. Right. Rose and Ram to win for Europe, but America to win the other 3.
Joe Malloy, we're going to be talking to him later on. Will you tell him that we need him to get the coffee in? We tell him we need him to get the coffee in. This yawning
he's
stuff.
He's on about his 4th coffee already. Every time I look around, he's disappeared. He's gone getting another
in that
coffee.
case, tell him to stop drinking it. You need to stop yawning.
Imagine having to spend 5 days with this.
Good luck. Talk to you in a bit. Thanks a million.
Good luck. Talk to you.
Nathan on the line there from Le Golf National, and our Ryder Cup coverage is brought to you in association with Now TV. Only pay for the days that you want and stream all 10 Sky Sports channels with the Now TV Sky Sports Pass. And as I said, we'll be back to Joe a little bit later in the day.
Justin Rose has just nailed an absolute monster birdie on the 4th there. John Ram has come up a little bit short. This pairing is just going to be the pairing to watch all day. If there is selected groups to watch, it's Rose and Ram you want to watch, like from a European perspective. Like I'm wearing a blue jumper this morning. I'm thinking of cutting out like yellow stars and paper and sticking them onto my jumper. I'm this proud of being European right now after watching that putt from Justin Rose.
Good
Beautiful
work,
stuff.
Good work. Don't leave me hanging.
Oh, sorry, Jesus, that was even worse.
All right, PwC. Listen, we're in the spirit of things. That's where we're going this morning. PwC have enhanced their sponsorship of the All-Stars with their new PwC All-Stars app, which will allow GAA fans and the Gaelic Games media to keep right up to date with all the very latest All-Stars related news, while also providing a comprehensive archive of All-Stars teams from the awards inception all the way back in 1971. The PwC All-Stars app will be available to download a little later this week from the App Store and Google Play Store. You can watch your Jack McCaffrey interview back over on our YouTube channel. Here, though, is Kyle Hayes, PwC Player of the 2018 All-Ireland Hurling Final, also nominated for a PwC All-Star and for the PwC Young Player of the Year. What a year for the Limerick man.
All right, PwC GPA GAA Player of the All-Ireland Final, Kyle Hayes. How are things?
Great now, yourself?
Not too bad. this is a strange one to start off with, but we were reading Sean Kavanagh's book recently, and he talks about winning the All-Ireland in 2008, and he couldn't sleep that night because he felt that he didn't play that well. He missed a goal chance. He got man of the match, I think, but he missed a goal chance, and that really pissed him off. So for you, it must have been an extra special thing to put in the performance you did in the All-Ireland final. Of course, the most important thing is winning Liam McCarthy, but that was an extra sweetener, I'd say.
Look, yeah, as you said, like, it's the main thing was a win. Like, I didn't really care if I played bad or if people thought I played bad, you know. And obviously it was nice. I had it on top of that, like, winning the match, like, but it's whatever I can do to help out the lads, like, you know. That's kind of the main thing, like.
What was in your head in that third quarter of the game when you kind of took over? I think I said myself on Twitter, it became the Kyle Hayes All-Ireland at a certain point in that game in the third quarter, when that was when you won the game. Like, are you thinking too much about it at that point? Do you realise what an influence you're having over the game, or is it just kind of a clear flow in your head?
No, not really. Like, you know, like, kind of balls were kind of falling into my hands really at one stage, you know, and I kind of knew had a nice bit of luck at that stage of the match, like, you know, and you just kind of try to ride the wave and do what you can to help out all the rest of the boys around you, and just try to bring other fellas into the game then and stuff, like, and just try to have a big influence on it, like.
Did it get to a stage this summer where you felt in the Limerick team that you were playing almost without thinking?
Yeah, like it's not like a routine, like, you know, but everyone kind of knew their job going out on the field, like, and obviously you have to have a bit of creativity there, like, and that two special players there, like Eoin, like, you know, and he'll bring that something special to the game every time, like, and we all knew our jobs, like, and like going out, you know, you have a certain role to do. If you fill that role, like, and do what you have to do, you've a great chance of getting a victory, like.
Has it sunk in yet?
Kind of, yeah, kind of there, and only last week, like, you might think it's mad, like, you know, it's nearly 6 weeks ago, like, but there was such a hype down in Limerick, like, it was crazy, like, you know, there's people, they're still talking about it down there, like, you know, even going down to the shop there for a slice pan or something, like, you know, someone bring it up still, like, and
well, why wouldn't they bring it up? I mean,
I know, sure, it's great, like, there's still a great buzz down there, and hopefully that'll kind of drive hurling on down there.
I think it will. I don't think they're going to stop talking about it for quite some time. I think that's the unfortunate news.
Sure. As I said, it's great. Like, it's kind of a sporting county, really. Like, you know, there's rugby is massive there, and soccer is massive as well. Like, and now hurling will probably be big there for next year, and it's great to see young fellas walking around with hurleys in their hands instead of a soccer ball or something, like.
Yeah, you'd be well accustomed to the soccer ball yourself, though, wouldn't you? Like, it really is a big sporting county. It is the real way to put it, and it's almost as if the hurling success is almost fed into all of these different types of success, instead of getting into a siege mentality where it's like, you won't play rugby, you'll play hurling. It's almost like we're a great sporting county, and whatever people happen to choose hurling, they choose hurling, and we're going to move forward with them.
Yeah, like, I've never had any pressure of choosing hurling as my sport, like, you know. It's just the one I get most enjoyment out of it, like. But like, you should say the rugby, Munster rugby's going well, the whole of Limerick will be behind on Munster, like, and then soccer then as well, like, you know, it's whatever's going kind of successful, people right in behind. There's no real negativity towards a certain sport or anything, like, you know, which is great, obviously, as well, like.
Yeah, and also as well, you get into the very basics of things. Like, we were chatting to Michael Quinlan on the show this morning about the cross-pollination of sports, and it's just going to improve your sporting IQ, I suppose, to use that term, in terms of picking up skills from other sports.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Like I played loads of rugby, soccer, football, the whole lot when I was younger, like, you know, anything get me out of the house, really, like, you know, and you know, like, you will pick small little things up from other sports, like, and we'll bring that into whatever one you end up choosing in the end, like, you know, and it's great, like, yeah.
Well, so what exactly is your timeline of sports then? Obviously the hurling timeline is still going. The soccer one was the most recent, was it? And then there was a bit of rugby thrown in there as well?
Yes, I played rugby there for Richmond, their club there inside in town, and I played till I was probably about 13 or 14, and kind of soccer was getting serious then. I always played soccer up along with it, like, you know, and a bit of Gaelic then as well, like, but soccer kind of got serious from probably, I don't know, around 11 or 12, just around the Kennedy Cup there, and after that then I moved into town to Mungo Regional, and we had a very strong team there at the time, like, you know, so I was kind of in two minds whether to pick that or not, to go give that a right lash, like, but eventually I ended up choosing Ireland, like.
How tough a decision was that?
Fairly tough though, to be honest, like, you know, I really enjoyed it at the times because we were being so successful and stuff with them, like, and hurling at the time, it kind of, it wasn't going well for me, like, but I wasn't having a greater impact. You know, I was going better in the soccer, like, you know, so it was tough, like, but in the end I had to sit down and choose one because I was out nearly every second night of the week, like, playing one, like.
Yeah. Did it ever cross your mind that professional lifestyle might be something that suited you? Was that ever a factor, or was it just down to the actual game you were playing?
No, just down to the game, really, like, John. And I'd say I would have made it as a professional soccer player now, like, John. Obviously, that's a dream to everyone, like, John, to try have that lifestyle, like. But it was just down to the game. Then eventually, like, as I started enjoying hurling that bit more, like, and I just ended up choosing it.
I'd imagine you're going to get fairly close to what a GAA player can do in terms of a professional lifestyle anyway. Obviously you'll have to do stuff outside of the hurling pitch and all that sort of stuff, but in terms of the perks that'll come with it, like, I'd be a big believer that GAA players should get as many perks as possible because of the amount of sacrifice that's put up there that ultimately you wouldn't have got to where you are in terms of winning an All-Ireland in the year 2018 unless your setup was close to professional.
Yeah, I know it is, sure, like, it basically is. Any fella playing GAA at that level, it will tell you, like, you know, you're out nearly 4 or 5 times a week training or doing something sort of in relevance to GAA, like, you know, whether to do with recovery or gym or something, like, and everyone knows if you don't put in the work, like, you're not going to get anywhere, like, so
yeah.
I don't mind either, like, I don't mind, like, gym now to say I'll always tip away at gym because I enjoy doing it, like, and obviously enjoy playing hurling as well, like.
I wanted to ask you about your club. I presume the club has gone back there. Your father is a former chairman of it. I'd say that was a very proud moment for the family.
Yeah, it was special, all right. Like it was only myself and Barry, another man there on the team from Kildime, like, but we're joined with Pallaskenry as well, and there was a fun day down there, so we didn't want to make a big deal of it either. We kind of just brought it on and if people on the pictures with it or whatever, we let them had it, like, but it was in high demand that day as well, like, you know, we only had it for, I'd say, 2 or 3 hours. It was gone to 3 different clubs in the same day, like, you know, like, the schedule of the cup is ridiculous, like, you know, it's probably 4 or 5 times a day here or there, and, you know, it's everywhere around the county, like, but it's great, like.
What was the energy like in Kildimo that day?
Brilliant, it was serious buzz there, like, and we played a Thursday and we lost. It was a big game though, and we actually lost, so fellas were kind of down around that, like, and that kind of brought the buzz back up then again, like, so.
Yeah. Like, when you look back on the summer as a whole, it's an interesting one, actually. It's an interesting case study, like your place in Limerick hurling at the moment, because I don't know, maybe earlier in the summer did you have doubts at all about where the summer might end, just maybe in the context of what happened in the under-21s? I know that's obviously clearly a very separate thing, but that was quite a humbling experience, I'd say, whereas it's the very opposite of a humbling experience what you ended up doing in August.
Look, we always had ambitions right from the get-go, like, you know, we knew we had a special bunch of players there, like, and it was after 21s, of course, it was devastating, especially being my last year and everything in the way it changed 20s, like, and we wanted to do as far as we go there, like, but, like, I think fellas we had us down as favourites really going into that game, and we really didn't deserve it, like, you know, tip our serious side, and they showed that right to the end then as well, like, you know.
Yeah, they certainly did. The other thing I wanted to ask you about was, given the news this week that JP McManus has donated €3.2 million to GAA clubs all around the country, like, what's your relationship like with JP? What's his relationship like with the team? He seems like a man who's done great work for you.
Oh, of course, yeah. He's, like, sure, everyone knows he does a serious amount of funding, like, but not even just GAA, like, within basically everything in Limerick he nearly has a hand in, like, you know, he's just a very, very generous man, like, and I've met him a few times, like, I wouldn't be personal friends with him or anything, like, you know, but he's a sound man, like, he's very, very genuine, down to earth, like, and, like, if you didn't know his face, you probably wouldn't pick him out of the room, like, you know.
Yeah.
He's kind of in the background the whole time, like, and his brother there as well, like, Jerry is doing all the underage as well, like, you know, and we probably know him a bit better now than JP coming from that, like.
Yeah, he was in the dressing room at full time in the All-Ireland. How happy was he that day?
I don't think he probably still has the soft spine, like, you know. He's always said that he wanted an All-Ireland, that's the only thing you can't buy, like, you know. But for him it was obviously very special, like, he's been involved in GAA since he's a little kid, like, and his club South Liberties as well, like, he was chairman of them when he was 21 or 22, like, you know. He'd know a lot of the Limerick legends, will say, in hurling, like, you know, and it was obviously a special occasion for him as well, like.
Yeah, well, it was a great gesture for the GAA this week. Kyle, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations and everything. I should ask you finally, are Liverpool going to win the league? I know you're a big Liverpool fan.
Yeah.
They are. This is going to be the year.
We don't want to jinx him yet.
Nice one, Kyle. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
Yeah, good stuff there from Kyle Hayes, the PwC player of the All-Ireland Hurling final, in conversation with Eoin during the week. You can check out the full piece over on our YouTube channel, and plenty more over there as well. It is 8:30 on this Friday morning. We're going to keep you right across the Ryder Cup, by the way, over the course of the day. We'll be back to Joe Malloy at Golf National in just a little bit. We're also goggle boxing the Ryder Cup this morning too, so we'll bring you up to speed on that. Now, have you any update for us?
No, well, we got a little bit excited.
You're doing the typical Ryder Cup thing of just looking at the TV and none of it is really sort of...
It's all going in.
Right, okay,
we may have got you excited there a little bit earlier on when Patrick Reed had hit the water. Unfortunately, from a European perspective, he's playing with this guy called Tiger Woods, who's pretty good at golf. So in the 4-ball format, he held up his end of the bargain and maintained all square. It's 1-up in Europe in one of the games, one of the matches, 1-up to USA in one of the other matches, and then it's all square in the other 2 at the moment. So it's level pegging at the moment, I think, is the phrase I'm looking for.
That's what they say. 1 week out from the McGregor-Khabib fight, of course, we've had quite the reaction, by the way, to our chat on last Friday's show about the Notorious one.
But as usual, like the national media, kind of point at it being fakery.
OTT fakery.
Fakery?
Fakery is the word I'm using. So it's fake?
Well, I wouldn't call it fake.
That it's over the top, it isn't real,
OTT.
it's manufactured. I personally, my phone went crazy. Like,
thought it was, like as though you look back at Conor before the Eddie Alvarez fight, he was loud, he was braggadocious, he was colorful. He was the same thing. I mean, this is no different. Sometimes he turns it up a little here and there, but this is what we've come to expect from Conor. I think the Irish people sometimes, and I don't obviously live in Ireland, I've only been there once, but I have friends who live there, and I work with Peter Carroll, or I used to work with him, and he tells me a lot about what goes on over there, and I think that sometimes the Irish people are too critical of Conor, and they want him to be a certain way. He is who he is, and I know that there's a certain sort of standard, and you need to be a role model, but let's not forget, at the end of the day, all's fair in love and fight promotion.
He is who he is, says Ariel Halwani, that is for sure, and he's an asshole. That's the way this thing works. We've had some reaction on to our segment last week when Niall McGrath dropped in to have a bit of a conversation about the MMA and the UFC, and I suppose specifically, to be fair, Conor McGregor, which is what I was kind of referring to. And our viewers and our listeners were engaged.
Were they?
By the entire proceedings.
Right.
And they felt so engaged, they decided to get in touch over the preceding 48 hours. Here's a bit of a flavour of how they got in touch with us. Here's our first comment. This is from @IrishBaggy. This was on Twitter, who says, "It's just classic Irish upper middle class elitist snobbery." I'm not sure what exact sect upper middle class sits in. Same people, he says, that wouldn't be caught dead watching a soccer, because it's just for gurriers.
Have you ever watched the soccer before?
Sometimes I occasionally would watch a soccer. I'm actually
to our level.
I'm actually quite fond of watching a soccer. I probably might not watch too much of a soccer this weekend with the Ryder Cup on. I won't lie to you.
Your favourite team is probably PSG. Let's have a look at another comment. Henry Burke says, "Jesus, that was annoying, Niall." Annoying Niall, I should say.
Noel. Not
you, but who's Adrian Barry. There's enough fans in Ireland willing to listen to analysis rather than having to justify Conor's existence or the sport's existence in conversation with a person who has zero interest in the sport. You probably do have zero interest in the sport, do you?
See, the point to make here is that I made no comment on the sport whatsoever.
Okay.
I made no comment on the sport at all. Is just a sort of a key observation.
I should probably watch the piece.
You probably should have done.
Before
you
I cast aspersions. I'm going to guess here, and I'm probably going to be right most of the time.
Next comment for you. This is from Top Keck. Looks as though it's coming through on the old YouTube there. This guy has no understanding of psychological warfare. That's true.
You definitely don't, though.
It's true.
Well, I think you've wound up enough people in the studio to have a great understanding of psychological warfare, is what I would say. Let's have a look at another comment. YouTube as well. Poetic Savage 6 days ago says, "Fakery," laughing emoji. "Everything he said can be backed up by real facts. This guy's a journalist. Do 5 minutes of research before you open your mouth, lol."
That was savage poetry.
It was savage poetry, yeah. You got ruined there, Adrian.
Next comment. Owen Doherty's been in touch. He says, "Fakery is the term I'm using and I'm sticking to it. The attitude is probably why that guy is stuck watching grown men kick a ball around the field. Why is he on that desk?" I don't fully follow all of that. No, I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I'm assuming it's a pop at me, is it?
Yeah, why are you on the desk? Like the fact that, as I say, I haven't watched the video back, but the fact that you were on the desk in the first place, probably
I shouldn't have sat in the desk. That I know. I will accept that was a mistake.
Stupid thing to do. Let's have a look at the next comment. This is Flower Huss saying, "Why does it have to be fakery? Have you never heard of selling a fight before? This automatic negative stance on anything to do with McGregor or MMA is so tired and overdone. It's like instead of doing any research and educating yourself on the sport, you just decide it's easier to take the nice, cozy stance of not liking Conor or the sport. Respect the sport of MMA and maybe you'll start to understand a bit of why Conor does what he does. Pure lazy journalism, lads." So he's implicating Niall in this as well. You know, he said lads.
I mean, that's just, I'm fine with being implicated in it. That's outrageous.
To implicate Niall.
Niall knows his stuff.
He does know his stuff.
And that's why we brought him in to have a chat about it.
Yeah.
And have
an argument about it.
No, that after both sides of the discussion, which is what we did. All right, next up we had Graham Thorpe. That presenter is an absolute clown.
No
inarguable point. Next.
Next one is Cesar Torres. "I don't know enough about MMA," quoting Adrian Barry. "Why do they have this moron talking about a game he does not understand with his stupid pressed shirt? Have him comment and curling. Maybe he can do a better job. That's class." I love you, Cesar Torres. That is the best comment I've seen.
I can't remember what shirt I was wearing last week.
It was clearly stupid and pressed. I don't know if the one you're wearing now is stupid and pressed.
Those things always go hand in hand.
Well, if it's
not a bad shirt. I mean, what's pressed? Does that just mean ironed?
Yeah, I presume Cesar Torres is just from America.
Ah, right. So I just shouldn't iron my shirts is kind of what's been said. Neil Donaghy, that gammon on the left needs to wake up and stop masquerading his hate.
Is gammon a complimentary term?
I mean, I can only associate that with ham.
Yeah, same. Like I presume in the content, the perceived tone there, I don't think it's a compliment, but who knows? Maybe it was a nice thing to say.
That's this week's constructive criticisms corner.
What have you taken from it?
Beautiful stuff. Good work. Don't leave me hanging. Oh yeah.
Oh, sorry. That really sums up the segment we've just done, Adrian, to be quite honest with you.
Good work, don't leave me hanging.
Oh, sorry.
Right. Anyway, look, we are very keen to hear from people. Like, it's absolutely fine. Get in touch. Like, try not to sort of misrepresent what went on.
Nobody misrepresents you, Adrian.
I do find that I'm doubling down now, and I do appreciate that before I make this comment, but I do find that with fans of Conor McGregor, and I'll make it abundantly clear, fans of Conor McGregor as opposed to fans of the MMA or fans of MMA or fans of the UFC. It's fans of Conor McGregor. That's really the point here. That you literally cannot say anything that isn't endorsing what a superstar Conor McGregor is without them getting outraged. They remind me of Donald Trump supporters.
Really?
Yeah. There's literally nothing that the guy can do that isn't fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, true. I guess that kind of comes in line with being a supporter, though, doesn't it?
Ah, yeah. But I mean, you can't be blind to certain things. You know, like no matter how much of a diehard fan you are, you can't be blind to certain things.
No, true. That would be.
And also, like, you know, it's not a huge amount of measured reaction generally to criticism of Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
it's like you're an asshole. You know nothing about the sport. You're being negative. It's Irish begrudgery. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah, I do wonder though how many of those big McGregor fans have been McGregor fans from the very start. And once you see something grow to such a stratospheric level, it's very hard to let go of that thing. And I think there needs to be maybe a tad more sympathy for that sort of point of view. That, you know, it's this thing that you've clung on to for quite some time. And like if I was supporting somebody who had come from the bottom, like to quote Drake, started at the bottom, now he's there, like that would be something that I would find very, very hard to let go of, no matter what was said or done, or what was the sort of perception of him as a character. So,
no matter what he does, at some point or another, he starts to do stuff that you go, "Ah, well, that's not why I started following this."
Maybe, but it certainly makes it a lot harder, considering you've been there from the start. You know.
Are you a Conor McGregor hipster?
I wouldn't consider myself a Conor McGregor hipster. No, no.
All right. I think we've set off another train here in relation to the mashed potato.
I'm looking forward to
the Kerry jerseys. There's been quite a few comments coming in about that as well. So
Billy, that was blatantly wrong.
We'll get to that this week, or we might have another constructive criticism corner next week. Anyway, have you any update for us on the Ryder Cup? Do you know the?
Well, I've been looking at those.
Putting you on the spot here.
I've been looking at those comments there for mostly the last 5 minutes, but I see a beautiful approach shot from Tiger Woods there. Tyrrell Hatton, the man on screen at the moment, they're one down in their clash at the moment against the Dork brothers is what I like to call them, Spieth and Justin Thomas. Some people might call them insufferable. I actually kind of like I kind of like Jordan Spieth. Justin Thomas, though, different story. Hatton not going to make it about 15 feet. He's not going to make it from there. So they're going to struggle to get back into this, or to get a hold back with approach shots like that. They're going to need to be a bit more dangerous, a bit more ambitious, I think.
All right, good stuff. That is the Ryder Cup. We'll be back to Joe Malloy in just a bit for much more on all of that. And Alan Quinlan is standing by to talk rugby next. Get your comments and questions in for Quinny. But first up, here's Keith Andrews from the Keith Andrews Show this week, talking about off-field distractions in the early days of his career.
I think I've been quite honest about it in the past. I got sucked into the lifestyle of the drinking culture, which was just part and parcel of football back in the 90s, late 90s when I went off in 96. And I was always a bit like you, actually. I was always a bit old before my time. You're 24 going on 44. And I was a little bit the same. It's not insulting, it's a compliment in there somewhere. So I was a little bit like that. I wanted to bounce off the older players. I liked the lifestyle. Not so much club, but just the team spirit, crack that you used to have together, going to pubs, playing pool. Like Hunty's right, there was a big betting kind of angle in sport in those days. I wasn't particularly into that. But like, you used to be out 3-4 nights a week. Which if you could comprehend, that was like a top championship team at the time. Like, we're going to talk about Derby County a little bit. I just can't see Mason Mount and Harry Wilson going out to Wetherspoons on a Tuesday afternoon.
Is that where he used to go?
No, I didn't go to O'Neill's.
O'Neill's, right.
There's a couple of Irish bars in Wolverhampton we used to go to quite a lot, but like, they were rife. It was all-day sessions. It was Saturday
fans must have loved it.
Yeah, I'm sure they did. I can't really remember them.
And would any of the... Well, you just said they wouldn't... Like, I would assume that nowadays if a fan saw one of the players...
It's a different era, isn't it?
Yeah.
Photograph banging, and you can't do it, obviously. So it's a different era, thankfully, for me. But
you didn't do it the day before a game, did you?
No, not the day before a game. 2 nights was the cap off. Thursday night was Greyhounds. Used to go to the dogs, and then...
Great night
sensible night. Yeah, but it was low key on the alcohol front, so it wasn't as good as the Tuesday night with a Wednesday off.
Alan Quinlan is with us in studio. We've got lots of rugby goodness coming your way over the next little bit. Conor Murray is in the spotlight over the last little while, obviously due to his injury and potential contract negotiations as well. Connacht against Leinster this weekend, the other provincial derby too, Munster and Ulster. Joe Marler is retired from club duty, and the All Blacks bouncing back. So that's a bit of a flavour of what's going on. Quinny, good morning to you.
Morning, Adrian.
Keith there,
how are you?
Talking about the good old days, and eventually he managed to get his stuff together and obviously put together a fine career. Talking about going on the beer sort of immediately before games and stuff like that. I'd imagine that that was part, particularly in certainly in the amateur days, clearly, but even when you would have started to come into the game, it was probably still there, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think there was probably a lack of understanding about what you could and couldn't drink, and how much and how bad it was for you, and fitness levels were different. With professionalism in 95, 96, I think in our earlier days, we probably thought a few pints was certainly on the weekends after matches, Saturdays, maybe a few on Sunday, and you kind of a day or two to recover, and you start the week slowly. And I think there's obviously, we've heard from so many soccer players over the years, even Roy Keane when he went to England first, the Monday clubs, the Tuesday clubs, sometimes, after a midweek game, there was a culture of that. So it's nothing new, and I can understand what Keith is saying. Temptation, you have a few quid in your pocket, you go to England, everyone's heading out.
And is it written off as sort of team camaraderie? Is that how it's sort of...
I think it was just a culture maybe, and that culture has changed dramatically in all sports and all societies, and in modern times, that sport has just gone to a different level with nutrition, fitness, all that kind of stuff, and I enjoyed part of that amateur era. I was never a big drinker, but we all enjoyed a few drinks, and we, even with the old Munster teams we would have played with in the earlier days, it was an important part of bonding, getting to know each other, having the crack as well off the field. I think, and the professional teams in the provinces and with Ireland now, they have to pick and choose their moments of a night out, and but certainly it's not a case of get into the habit of heading for a few pints. That just doesn't happen anymore. Yeah, and look, if you want to be an elite sports person, it just doesn't work. Even for amateur guys playing GA or whatever, you hear the way they prepare now, the GA players, like I speak to a lot of guys, and they, there's from January right through to the end of the championship, it's very, very minimal, sometimes none at all. That's how serious they are. So if you want to be serious in sport, I think the kids coming through nowadays will, all that information is there from now about, you know, not to drink and in moderation, all that stuff. None of that stuff. We grew up in a culture where it was normal to have a few pints the night before.
Everything in moderation.
Remember the great with Moss Keane, you know, if you go back to the amateur days and the great Moss Keane and players he played with, Donald Lenihan, all these guys, and it was the forwards used to head out on a Friday night for 3 or 4 or 5 pints just to have a little forwards meeting in the pub in Ballsbridge, and that was a common thing, just to have a chat,
take the edge off.
Take the edge off, and exactly. Donald Lennon always said that to me, just take the edge off, but, you know, don't go over the quota. That happens, you know, but... so it's all changed nowadays.
Yeah, very good. I know that we were going to talk about sort of Joe Marler a bit later on, and he's England front row, and he's retired from international duty, and he's sort of released a statement, a fairly short statement. There hasn't been a huge amount of more detail about sort of the specific rationale as to why he's retired, but like it is obviously, it's a big, you can see some of the headlines about it over the net this week. Like it's the draw on the physical and mental capacity of players these days is full on. He's spoken about it himself before.
Yeah, it's. I'm not surprised that he's kind of stepping away. Well, obviously it's a shock, but he's been one player that's pretty vocal about the length of the season in England, the amount of games they have to play. And even recently I heard him say, look, I'd rather get less money and play less games and have a few more breaks. I think it goes back to the envy of the way the players are managed here in Ireland. Not everyone agrees with it. With the Interpros coming up this weekend, 95% of all our top players will play. You know, the next round of Interpros, they probably won't be playing. They'll be mixed and matched a bit. But we have the luxury of doing that here in England and France. You're a bit more of a commodity. You play nearly every game if you're fit and available. There's no such thing as resting, and it happens in France a lot. So Joe Marler has spoken, about his young family now, and genuinely the commitments away with the national team are, you play a couple of games, then you're gone for a block, and you're literally out of the home for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and it's a long time to be away. And he's obviously said, you know what, something has to give, either the club stuff or the international stuff, and he wants to try and be happy and content in himself and be closer to his family, and you respect his decision, even though it is relentless. I chatted to Peter O'Mahony recently, and I'm just, it's non-stop for these guys, even though they get managed with their time, but they're away a lot, and that is challenging. It's the one part of it. People think you go to Australia, you're away in camp for 6 weeks for Six Nations, November, all that kind of stuff, and they think, it's great being away in hotels all the time, and
it gets old pretty quickly.
95% of the players, particularly nowadays, the older ones who have a family, it's hard being away from your wife or your partner and young kids, and you feel a responsibility, you're not helping out. So it's probably for that reason, and it's understandable.
It's quite telling that the club was given preference over the international career at this point. Do you see sort of rugby going down a path like soccer, where the international retirement naturally comes 5-6 years before your club retirement?
Yeah, I do, Owen, because it's just so much rugby. The season is so long, and you can imagine, look, we see it every year. Long season, the emotions of the ups and downs throughout the whole season, and then you head off for 3 or 4 weeks in June, and you're not back till the end of June, and it's a long time. You have a couple of weeks off, and it's hard to kind of get all that balance right, of spending time with a few mates, having a game of golf, and then you've kids and your wife and whatever, and getting away on holidays, and just seeing family and being normal for a couple of weeks. There's a lot of pressure, and I just think what rugby players get paid, I'm not compared to soccer players in the Premiership, they deserve every penny, because it's so physical, there's so many demands, sacrifices that have to be made, and they don't get all the luxuries and the bells and whistles that the soccer players get.
They feel it later down their life as well.
Yeah, they do, yeah, and physically it's very demanding, so I can understand it. And look, he can't pick international and say, I'm not going to play club, because you won't, you've got to play club, that stepping stone up. But it is relentless, and there's a lot of pressure there and a lot of sacrifices to be made.
Give you the latest in the Ryder Cup before we get into the interprovincials this weekend. It's Justin Rose is a very long putt to half the hole in his match, in the top match, and it just slips by the hole, so that should be that one all level. That's Justin Rose and John Ram level now against Brooks Koepka and Tony Finau. It's level as well there through 6 now, I think. Through 5 level as well between Rory McIlroy and Thorbjorn Olesen, who are up against Dustin Johnson and Ricky Fowler. One up in the third match to the USA, that's Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth against Paul Casey and Terrell Hatton there through 4 holes, and then through 3 all square as well. In the bottom match between Francesco Molinari and Tommy Fleetwood up against Tiger Woods and Patrick Reed.
Patrick Reed, yeah.
Right, that's the way the state of play. It's all very tight over the early holes of the Ryder Cup. We're going to keep that coming your way over the next little while too. And back to Joe Malloy in a bit. Quick look at the fixtures this weekend live on Air Sport as well. We have the match-up tomorrow, Connacht and Leinster, tomorrow evening from 5:15 on Air Sport 1, and also on the same channel a bit later in the evening is the other provincial derby between Munster and Ulster. Connacht, Quinny, is where I want to begin this, because they're a pretty interesting story. I know you've been looking at it a bit over the last few days. Andy Friend, I mean, it's all turning up rosy for them again. It's got shades of Pat Lam about it, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has that kind of feel-good factor, and that's the kind of soundbites you're hearing out of Connacht. It's amazing how, one good performance against the Scarlets. It's not one good performance. I thought they played really well against Glasgow in the first game. Their skills were good. They played attacking rugby. They seemed to be enjoying themselves and really excited to play, and a little bit porous in defence, and they got caught by a good Glasgow side. They should have won that game. They were, I think, 10 or 12 points up with 15 minutes to go. They had opportunities in the end. They beat Zebra, lost away to a good Edinburgh side, which is a tricky place to go. So it's been positive. I think the story is Andy Friend from where it was last year and what we were hearing about, the mood in the camp under Kieran Keane, and he's obviously come in, Andy Friend, and assessed the whole situation and sat down with people and said, what do I need to do here? I think first and foremost for any coach, you've got to get a good mood in the camp, and you've got to get them to trust you and like you. As the season goes on, some will dislike it because you're not picking them. You might be hard on other guys who are not pulling their weight. So it's the balance of getting all that right, and there's a fair bit of pressure in managing a big group like that and trying to get the best out of them. But what we hear is, he's a positive guy. He's trying to give confidence to guys, make them believe in themselves a little bit again. And it's kind of harsh on Kieran Keane because, his reputation as a coach was very good before he came in. And it just seemed like, whether it was because he came late, just didn't seem to have his research done on the type of guys he'd have. Some obviously very good players, but maybe a few guys who needed a bit more developing, a bit more confidence. And that whole Pat Lam scenario of connecting with the community and getting the crowd behind you. That too. Yeah, and then look, it kind of started earlier last year with Kieran Keane when a few results went. He did an interview on Sky Sports, not just Sky Sports, but a few other media people, and it just seemed like he was tetchy, grumpy, and what the fans want to hear is, even if you lose a game, well, how are we going to fix it and where are we going to go? And they want to hear optimism and positivity, and he just didn't embrace that scenario. Which is unfortunate for him, and obviously when sacking the guy or terminating his contract is an admission from Connacht and the RFU that it didn't work out, they didn't get it right. So obviously in their due diligence and trying to find someone, you're trying to find someone who's going to be positive, who's going to be full of energy, who's going to try and change a situation that was really negative. So he went through a bit of player discontent in 2011 with the Brumbies. So I think maybe that would be to his advantage and the Connacht's advantage, because the Brumbies he was coaching the Brumbies and for a couple of seasons, and results were going bad, and this can happen. If you lose in matches, you hear rumblings in any sport, and he got kind of pushed out and his contract was terminated in 2011. Went away to Japan coaching, went with the Australian 20s, the 7s, and kind of reinvented himself. So he seems to portray and kind of give a awful lot of positivity. Yeah. And I just thought the performance last week was worth saying, they look good. They look confident. They look happy.
When you talk about that sort of like instilling that positivity in the work that he's doing with the players, like Jack Carty is probably the best embodiment of that almost. He's a guy playing with confidence, and I think people were unsure about the consistent quality of this guy.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think I've heard people say, look, he could push to get in the Irish mix, and I think he should, and I think it is down to confidence, and particularly playing in a pivotal role position like that. He's a really, really good player. Tom Farrell is another one in the centre I thought was outstanding last week. This kind of had come the long way around. Guys who didn't get into the Leinster Academy. Gavin Thornby's another guy. I think he's out for the weekend.
Injured, yeah.
Cian Kelleher, there's a number of ex-Leinster Academy players there, and they've gone the kind of longer route to try and reinvent themselves and get back in. And you go back to Connacht when they won in 2015-16 season, they took everyone by storm. The positivity, the skill set, the way they played for each other, the unity of the team. And, they had a kind of a dip then, a bad dip. I think it'd be great for Irish rugby if they came back, because they were a great story that time. And I think they have a lot of good players. Paul Boyle has come in and, he's been outstanding. Copeland has gone there. Dave Heffron's a really good player at hooker. Ultan Dillane is someone who wants to try and get back in the Irish setup. Had a fair bit of adversity in the last year. So they have a lot of good players when you start naming them. They lost their talisman, their leader, Muldoon, was there for so long, but I think it's a new era now under Andy Friend, and so far so good.
The thing is, though, last week Bundy Aki was back, and the difference was immediately noticeable. He is such a talismanic figure for them.
And he looked in some shape.
Yeah,
he looked to hit the ground running, which is, maybe the season before he was a bit slow off the ground, and you can see he's an international quality player, and he's probably preparing like that all the time now in the off season. He's conditioned, the shape of the body, all that kind of stuff, and he was brilliant. And you can see the enthusiasm of Farrell outside him, Carty inside him.
I was about to say, like, Farrell must love playing alongside.
Yeah, well, anyone would. He's incredible. The offload for the try was just phenomenal. And look, I think you have to be careful that you don't get too carried away, because a week can be a long time. We're talking about optimism from Munster last week. They were terrible. So Connacht this week have got an angry Leinster side who are, the bar setters, really phenomenal. The standard they have and the start they've had this season has been top quality again. They were ruthless last week in disposing of Edinburgh in Dublin, and Cian Healy came out and said, look, it was disrespectful to kick that John Muldoon took last year.
Was that real? Was it?
But you know what,
Owen's a skeptic.
No, if I'm standing under the post, I'm thinking the same. But probably the thing and the angriest part for them is they were beaten 47-10, and if you obviously they went on and won in Europe and won the Pro 14, but that would have really irritated Leo Cullen. And even though you could say the game was a bit insignificant, it was John Muldoon's send-off and Connacht were incredible. The question I asked at the time was, why didn't Connacht play like this all season at home? They were ferocious. Leinster maybe, understandably had their eyes and mind on other things. They were already qualified with a home semi-final. They were looking forward to a European final, a European semi-final as well, and then went on and won both. But it's been grating at them, and it kind of came out. Luke Fitzgerald has spoken about some other players. So I think we'll see where Connacht are tomorrow, and can they withstand that challenge. And it'll be another part of their growth. This is kind of a step that you're playing the best club side in Europe, coming to your patch. Can you back up a really good result last week with a top class performance again? And that's the challenge. But to be fair to Connacht, even in a very poor season last year in the league, the results in the Inter-Pros were very good.
It'll be fascinating to see what happens tomorrow. And for Connacht, for the rest of the season, we'll be keeping a very close eye on them. Munster, you were getting very carried away with them last week. When
you were trying to probe me to get carried away. I wasn't, because
Heineken Cup champions in waiting was what I was hearing.
That's what you said. Owen, back me up on this one now.
A blip obviously last week. Just on a serious note, talk to us about, like, there's a run coming now, a very important run, and the importance of turning that around quickly.
Yeah, well, look, first and foremost, they've got to find a performance tomorrow against Ulster, and a positive one. This isn't. I think there's actually more pressure on them now to get a really good performance tomorrow. There will be a reaction. I think they'll probably be disgusted themselves, coaches, players last week. It's probably the manner in the loss in Cardiff. I think everybody was excited about the team that was picked, and it was very close, if not the starting pack for Europe in a couple of weeks. Klein and Byrne in second row. Mahoney, Stander, Clote, Tommy O'Donnell. There was a lot of quality there, good impact off the bench, you would think, and very surprisingly, they were kind of physically out-muscled and beaten in the physical challenges, and very, very passive in defence. So there was a lot of incidents in the game where you're looking and you're thinking, Jesus, that's really bad, really bad, really bad. And I remember, probably, look, and I said they'd be very frustrated themselves, and I'm sure there would have been harsh words this week. The concern is they went to Glasgow. You give them a bit of pass on that one. It's the first away trip. Very strong side, but the worry is those 2 away games, they were physically out-muscled and just didn't turn up. In Glasgow, at least, they came out in the second half and there was a massive reaction and they played a lot better, and there was a lot of positives you can take away. Very few positives last week. So they play Ulster tomorrow evening at Thomond Park, and Ulster have 3 wins and a loss, and they'll fancy their chances going down to Thomond Park. And then obviously come to Dublin and play Leinster next week, and then away to Exeter. So it's for all the teams, Adrian, it's a massive couple of weeks. But I think for Munster in particular, they've got to really kind of bring a lot of energy and execution tomorrow night. But it can all change very quickly. Good results this week, and they'll be in good spirits coming to Dublin next week. But they really can't afford a bad performance tomorrow night, or it's going to be a really challenging couple of weeks to switch it around for the bigger games. Before we let you away, we do want to get a word on Conor Murray. A lot of conversation reporting during the week that the RFU are going to make him the best paid Irish player in an effort to try and sort of keep a lot of the vultures at bay, I suppose, as we've seen over the last few years. I mean, this guy's highly regarded, potentially the best in his position on the planet. Yeah, I think, and look, there's no doubt when player that quality, he's contracted up, there's going to be speculation, he's going to be linked to other clubs, and he's going to think about it. It's not going to be a case of, I'm just going to sign a contract, I want to stay. Ultimately, they're professionals, Adrian, and they want to try and get the best deal for themselves. And I think, look, I can understand the other side of it as well. You can't hold... And the RFU have shown before that you can't hold them to ransom and look for astronomical, out-of-this-world money. But I think he deserves it. He's been consistently right at the very top of his game for a number of years, and so integral and important to Munster and Ireland. And, so I don't envisage many complications unless he wants to go himself. And I'm not sure if he does or doesn't, but I think he probably, if he gets a, really good offer. The question is, at this stage, does he want to travel and experience something different, or stay and continue playing? I would imagine the position he's in is probably different for Simon Zeba at the time, where, was he guaranteed to be on the team every week? And it's maybe a little bit different, and he probably feels he can come back. I think if Conor Murray left now, can he come back? He's 29. He will be 29 when the contract's up, so you think his next contract will be his best one, and deservedly so. Well, I don't know if it'll go to that, but I think he probably has some endorsements as well that will add to it. But look, he's the best scrum half in the world, in my opinion, so he'll probably be, if he signs a contract with the RFU, he'll be probably the best paid player, and you have to think that's fair enough, because he's so consistent and so good. Presumably he's looking at what's going on around him as well, like in terms of Carberry coming in particularly, and thinking, finally I've got somebody here. And it'll be interesting to see when Murray is fit again and he's back at the pitch, like even how that dynamic works, for example. Who knows? Yeah, for sure, I think, and it was one of the reasons why Joey Carberry went there, to play with someone like Conor Murray. He's been phenomenal, and look, he's a very balanced, sensible guy who doesn't get carried away, and he's not going to sign a contract if he doesn't feel, and whoever represents him feel it's right for them. The kind of welfare scenario of playing here is one of the big things, but he wants to win things as well, so he'll want to try and see Munster improve this year, and obviously go to a World Cup and continue and move forward. He just wants to win things and stay at that consistent level. Isabel Cody has been in touch with us. How can Munster shore up the defence, she asks, and how can they defend so badly outside Thomond but play marginally better there? It can't just be the ground. No, I think it's probably an attitude thing, and look, people are intrigued by why would someone's attitude be bad. It's not that we heard Ferguson talking about United's performance last week. against Wolves. Why would their attitude be not good enough at that level? But it's maybe a % or two off, and maybe the opposition being ferocious in their approach. Cardiff were under massive pressure last week, and it just takes one or two little mistakes, somebody to be a bit blasé and look to the guy inside or outside to make that big hit. And it just seemed to kind of filter through the group last week. So for JP Ferreira, I think, you know, his work this week in defence, I think he would have put him under a lot of pressure. A little bit of communication, a little bit of confidence, because if you look at one of the breaks by Ray Lilo, it was between Clothy and Carberry, and they both kind of looked at each other and said, was he your man or my man? And that stuff cannot happen at that level. Somebody's got to take ownership, and it has to be player driven as well. You're talking about the defence coach, so they've got to really, really make sure that they're, you know, and it has to come from the coaches as well, that if guys are falling off tackles, that those mistakes happened last week, and there's zero tolerance on that now going forward, because you miss one tackle in the next couple of weeks and then it'll cost you and put you on the back foot in Europe.
There's one other thing I wanted to ask you, because we haven't had you in this week, but Jerry Flannery and his quotes in the newspapers last weekend was talking about the legacy of Rassie Erasmus on Munster. But the one comment that stuck out to me, because I know you've mentioned him before, is that he felt Nienbar was the best coach he's ever worked with. He was like a sponge working with him, which I've never heard anybody say before. He was obviously highly regarded. As I said, you mentioned him before as an important part of that Erasmus backroom team, but I haven't heard anybody said he's possibly one of the best coaches around. Like, how big a factor could that be, and how big a factor is it going to be in future when we see the kind of legacy of him wear off a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's I've heard many players say that Nienbar was phenomenal to work with, and I think the role of the defensive coach is not to give him a system, not just to give them a system, but it's to inspire him, to want to impress him and kind of take away pride from making a tackle, getting back up, making another one. When they watch the videos, that he says, look, what this guy did, he got back in the line, his work rate here was phenomenal, he assist tackled here. So it's not just making a one-on-one tackle, it's all the work rate and the pressure you put at the breakdown. And he was phenomenal at that, giving them that detail. But also, defence about inspiring, making fellas believe, because, you know, not everybody has the perfect tackle technique. Some guys are naturally better defenders than others, so it's about getting the balance and getting guys to believe in themselves, and he was phenomenal. So I think that's been an issue, and it's probably been hard on JP Ferreira to come in if this guy is up here at this level. And you know, the run they went under him with their defence was phenomenal that whole season. So they've got to find a way to say, look, this is how we defended before, and put the pressure and translate that, and maybe help Ferreira himself, Jerry Flannery, Felix Jones, and translate that, and then get the players to drive it. But ultimately, if you're missing kind of one-on-one tackles, it's not good enough at that level, and they need to find a way to fix that really quickly.
Outside of watching the games on Air Sport 1 over the weekend, Quinny, you're going to be watching the Ryder Cup, I'm sure? Yeah,
I'll be glued to it as much as I can. It's phenomenal, and it's a great sporting occasion. I was saying on breakfast this morning that maybe I'm wrong, but I think people who just have an interest in sport, they might not sit down and watch golf on weekends, but this is different because you're seeing emotion, you're seeing passion, and you know, I just love to see guys expressing themselves, and we don't often see it in golf because, you know, they have the poker face, they move on to the next hole. See this, it's unique that there's multi-millionaires here, have the shackles off as such. It's not about money, it's about coming together as a group, so it's phenomenal.
Would you wear a Munster jersey or a Tip jersey going to watch a golf tournament?
I'd wear a Tipperary one, Eoin.
Yes, thank you very
because
much.
The Kerry one is everywhere, and all over there again. You see the Kerry ones this morning. No, I like Kerry. I'm a Kerry football fan as well, so I'd wear the Tip one. Okay.
Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
You're leaving me hanging.
Well, if you stop,
Quinny, fist bump.
Sorry,
it's
I didn't see it. I'm asleep.
You're the second person this morning to leave me hanging.
More this Heineken Cup champions Munster. That slagging going on from you. Okay, give
much
over.
More of that.
Hopefully, we'll have a positive chat about Munster on Monday morning.
Thanks, Million, for coming in to us. Alan Quinlan is always on a Friday. I can tell you the very latest from the Ryder Cup. I'm going to be left hanging all morning. It seems that the US are up in 1 and 2 up in that match. It's the third match. Justin Thomas and Jordan Spieth 2 up against Casey and Hatton. But Molinari and Fleetwood in the bottom match have gone 1 up against Tiger Woods and Patrick Reed. That is the big news from the Ryder Cup this morning. The other 2 matches are all square, so that's where we sit on that. And a reminder as well that OTB AM is live with Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a choice of over 20,000 quality trade products. Now, Darren Cleary is on the way to bring us up to speed with the world of live sport this morning, but before all of that, the Hurling Team of the Year will be recognised at the 2nd Annual Electric Ireland GA Minor Star Awards, which will be held at Croke Park on tomorrow. And as the culmination of Electric Ireland's This Is Major campaign, the event is a major tournament for the players. It highlights the success achieved throughout the championship. Here's Mick Fennelly, selector for Electric Ireland, and how they pick the Minor Star Awards.
It was good to be involved with Electric Ireland in picking the minor all-star team, and again, very difficult to do. There's only people happy and people not happy. So very same with the seniors, with the football and the hurling obviously as well. So it was good to do. It's nice to give some recognition to those players as well at that young age of their achievements this year individually. Even though as a team they might not have succeeded, if your own performance was top level, they're getting an award. And there's a lovely night for them next Saturday week on the 29th where they presented the awards, and it'll be a hurler of the year as well on the night presented.
How did that championship stack up for you this year? Because I suppose from your own point of view, having stepped away from the Kilkenny panel and now I suppose judging this team this year, you've got two hats on essentially. You're looking to judge the team of the year, and also you're looking to see from a selfish point of view if there's anything from a Kilkenny perspective that can feed the senior team in the next year or so as well. Yeah, without a doubt. It was great. Obviously the loss against Dublin in a kind of a crazy Leinster final with about 13 goals were scored, so that forced them in the back door, and they had to play all in all I think Richie Mull was saying something like 9 or 10 games, so that was a heavy going on the players. But again, it's a lot of experience, and again they got to test the panel, and if you're coming through games like that will add massive experience for you onto under 20s, which will be next year, and hopefully onto senior. So impressed, to be honest. And they obviously got to the All-Ireland final. Galway were far the superior team, to be fair, but it gives hope, and if you're reaching All-Ireland finals, it's good. It's very, very positive. Yeah. What kind of areas were the most difficult to pick from this year? The forwards were very tough, because obviously there was high scoring in most of the games. It was a very high scoring championship generally, though. It was, yeah, which again, I suppose, and that's a good thing, maybe. You know, that we've a lot of good forwards coming from all different counties, and Galway always have a really strong minor team. From the years I've been playing and watching, they've always been very strong. I was actually just looking lately enough on their minor count, maybe over the last 20 years. They've won maybe 6 or 7, so they actually haven't took over altogether, but they always seem to be getting there. Thereabouts. And they've always a lightning corner forward who's really a top-end player for over the years. So there's always a great talent. Like last year, you had Joe's nephew, who was a huge talent and one to watch out for, obviously, for the coming couple of years. It's a fantastic thing to kind of have that production line, because ye would have been known for it down through the years. Galway now are getting known for it too, and we've seen, I suppose, what success at underage level for a Limerick side has done in the past 2-3 years as well, ultimately culminating in them winning the Liam McCarthy just this past September. Yeah, funnily enough, Limerick haven't won the minor in donkey's years, even though they have a strong cohort here of players coming through. So they haven't achieved underage, but they have developed those players, and it has come to fruition in terms of under 21. They have 2 under 21s over the last maybe 3 or 4 years, and also now they have obviously the Liam McCarthy Cup, and they have a really good bunch of players now, and it's a strong big panel, so plenty competition for places. John Kiley has him there now, and he really has some good foundations laid, good culture there, and he seems to really have a real hard working panel. And if you have that, that's the foundation of every team's success, and everyone seems to was buying into it. And even like Shane Dowling, who would be normally a starter over the years, was coming on, and he had no animosity in terms of not starting, and obviously he had a huge impact in all those games. So he seems to have a lot of players level-headed, a lot of young players there, and they would have came through that strength and conditioning kind of academy, that was in existence about maybe 8 to 10 years ago. So that is paying off now, I think, and I've been watching that for the last 5-6 years, and these players are stronger. They're going to be, hopefully, I suppose, for them, preventing injury, which is key, and hopefully get a more of a longevity career out of some of those players.
Yeah, Mick Fennelly in conversation there with Richie during the week. Just coming up at 9:15 on this Friday morning, a few people in contact in relation to our earlier conversation, Owen, about the... welcome, Darren Cleary, by the way.
Thank you very much.
About our earlier conversation about the Kerry jersey being at golf tournaments. Something happened there? I must have missed it. Is that the worst...
This is just...
Pound it out there.
I almost feel like I'm getting the worst.
We were talking about the mashed potato brigade
happen.
versus the Kerry jersey brigade, which, you know, which is a little bit sickening. Shawnee says on Twitter, it's effing embarrassing GA jerseys being worn anywhere outside Ireland. The sight of a Carl's Meat Offaly jersey in Salou drives me mad. Then you have the gobshites who walk around with hurls as well. FFS, just go to Galway on holidays.
That's disrespectful, isn't it? Like, what's wrong with wearing a jersey outside of the country?
It's bringing the hurl, I think, on holidays was the real issue there.
People not wear Manchester United jerseys on this island?
Last thing I'd like to do
is not wearing a sports jersey in the
Sean's opinion there.
The sort of jurisdiction within which your sporting team plays. You're not allowed to wear it outside of said jurisdiction. So Salou's not okay. Is the UK okay? Is it just outside of Ireland? I don't know. I don't really think that comment makes any sense whatsoever.
They just look out of place in holiday resorts. They're fine in Croke Park if you're walking with 10,000 other people and you're all wearing similar clothing and colours. But if you're on a random beach in Ibiza and you've got a Carol's Meat jersey on, it just looks a little odd.
Conor McKeown says they're history's greatest monsters.
Mashed potato people?
I mean, I think he's talking about the Kerry jerseys.
No, I'd say he's talking about the mashed potato.
And Neil McOr says that I'm right. So, I mean, let's just leave it at that, I guess, is probably the way to do it. It is time to turn to the Ryder Cup and our coverage of the Ryder Cup, brought to you in association with Now TV. Only pay for the days that you want and stream all 10 Sky Sports channels with the Now TV Sky Sports Pass. Joe Malloy, come on in.
Adrian Barry, let's try and make this less awkward than your fist bump attempt.
It's impossible. At least you're awake, Joe. When we were looking at you a bit earlier on, there was a lot of yawning going on. You were easing yourself into the day. But it's landed, and it's been pretty exciting so far.
In my defence, I've spent 2 days with Nathan Murphy talking either about golf or Nathan Murphy.
It's more than any man should have to put up with, to be fair. Tell us about what's the state of play and what's going on.
In short, Europe up in 2. US up in 1 and all square in the other, and Europe they'll be delighted with this if they can even come in 2-2 they would take, because they have 4 rookies out there. So in short, we have Koepka and Finau against Rose and Ram, and that is Europe 1 up. So Rose started with a brilliant shot, got a birdie on the first. Finau chipped in for eagle to make it all square in the 6th, and just in the last few moments a par was good enough for Justin Rose to put Rose and Ram 1 up. So they're 1 up in that match. Match 2 is Dustin Johnson Fowler against Rory McIlroy and Olesen. They're all square, 2 birdies apiece through 6 holes in that match. Then match 3, Jordan Spieth. Jordan Spieth, player of the morning. Oh my God, he's just another one. Okay, I was about to tell you Jordan Spieth had 3 birdies through 5 holes. Make that 4 birdies through 6, Jordan Spieth. Right. Just outrageous golf from him. So they're 2 up in that match. Spieth and Thomas, I mean, they were always going to be really tough to beat. Yeah. They'd known each other all their lives. They're 2 world number 1s. Casey and Hatton. Hatton started reasonably well. They've had 2 birdies, but Spieth is just on fire. I mean, he's had a terrible season. He's been in terrible form. He didn't even make the Tour Championship finale, which Tiger Woods won just the other day. He wasn't even in the field, and yet he's just rocked up here and it's just gone into Spieth overdrive mode. So that's definitely looking like a match you can kind of chalk up as probably going to be done. So they're 2 up in that match. And then Tiger Woods and Patrick Reed bringing up the rear against Molinari and Fleetwood. And that is Molinari and Fleetwood 1 up. So they birdied the first, Molinari. Woods had a birdie on the second. And then Fleetwood's chipped in with a birdie. So through 4 or 5 holes, it's Molinari, who of course won his Open, his British Open alongside Tiger Woods this year. They're 1 up in that match. So again, Europe up in 2. Rose and Ram and Molinari and Fleetwood all square in the McIlroy match against Dustin Johnson and Fowler with Olesen alongside him, and then Jordan Spieth going crazy in that other match where they're 2 up. Lots of quality golf though. We weren't expecting many birdies. That was one of the lots of the things that are said all week in this very slow build up. One of them was there won't be many birdies. We're seeing plenty of birdies and even an eagle from Finau. So like the quality here is going to be as good as anything we've seen in any Ryder Cup.
Will you talk to us about that bottom match for a second? Because, like, looking at it, sort of going into it, the strength, I suppose, of Patrick Reed is Woods' 13th Ryder Cup partner from right. Yeah. But the strength of that partnership, and, maybe Tiger Woods is a slightly different player now in terms of what he's been through over the last few years and in terms of that team aspect. But I certainly, looking at this, had almost written off that match as I had the one before that. But the possibility of Molinari and Fleetwood getting something out of that match and the impact that would have on Team Europe.
Yeah. I mean, the Woods partners, thing is really interesting. So 13 partners. I mean, one of the points people make when they criticise Woods' Ryder Cup record is actually he plays quite well. You know, his singles record is very good, and he plays pretty well in the foursomes and four balls. It's the poor bloke next to him who he barely talks to is finding it quite intimidating. I mean, Woods should be intimidating the other two lads. He actually intimidates his own partner quite a lot. If you look at how well players alongside Woods have played with him, it's not great. So actually, you know, it's going to be very interesting to see the new friendlier, cuddlier version of Tiger Woods. Will that bring out the best in his playing partner?
Is he? Sorry to cut across.
Yeah.
Is he? I suppose the question is he different Tiger Woods now, and is that going to result in a more positive Ryder Cup record for the reasons that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's the really interesting thing to see. I mean, Reid thus far hasn't weighed in with the birdie. He's one of the few players who hasn't had a birdie yet. Now they're only 5 holes in, and it's going to be interesting. Is Woods, is he arm around the shoulder now? Is he lots of high fives? What's the body language? So we'll see how that goes. But certainly, I mean, Reid will have gone to the first tee today at least not feeling like, oh my God, I'm playing with Tiger Woods. He's going to hate me if I don't play well. He's hardly going to talk to me, kind of a thing. And that may have been the air at times, you know. On Molinari and Fleetwood, I mean, I think we were all looking at this as potentially a good chance for Europe to get a point and possibly the match of the morning. Fleetwood's won on this course, so he's really, really good around here. Fleetwood's going to win a major in the next 2 to 3 years. I know you can say that about lots of players who don't, but Fleetwood's phenomenal. And then Molinari won his Open, his first major, alongside Tiger Woods just a couple of months ago. You know, Woods took the lead in that Open, you remember, around the turn, and Molinari stayed steady all the way through and won that Open. So in a sense, he's looking at Woods saying, I'm fine here, and he started with a birdie. So Molinari and Fleetwood have a great chance. Also because, as I said, Fleetwood's won on this course before. Molinari's great strength always has been, he's been a brilliant ball striker. So he hits a lot of fairways. He wasn't a very good putter for a long time. Hits a load of fairways, Molinari, and that's what you need on this course. What we've discovered, the other big thing to mention this morning, if you're in the rough, it's unbelievably penal. You're almost giving up the hole. You're almost out of the hole if you're in the rough. It's very hard to make the green. It's really thick. It's still a bit wet. Conditions, by the way, are perfect. It's like 13, 14 degrees, no wind whatsoever. That's probably contributing to the birdies. I think, though, Europe, looking at this scoreboard right now, up in 2 matches, all square in another. I mean, if they get in with 4 rookies blooded on the opening morning and they're in the lead, I mean, think back to 2 years ago. They're 4-0 down. Darren Clark 2 years ago in Hazeltine is going, we're 4-0 down. And there was panic stations. The plan was ripped up. Thomas Pieters and McIlroy, who'd been playing okay, were never due to play with each other. And it was just panic stations. So they were thrown together. You know, you two aren't playing terrible. Go out and please God get us a point. They'd never practiced together before, hadn't played together before. So, the plan of how we're going to play a certain number of matches, all that stuff gets torn up. So, I mean, I would think that was in Bjorn's thinking this morning, that he said, do you know what? I'm chucking out my rookies this morning, and at least if it goes disastrously, I'm not putting out a bunch of rookies at 2 or 3, 3-1 down or 4-0 down. And at least Sergio and Poulter and all those lads can handle trying to chase a lead. So, look, I think, I mean, Nathan and I sort of tipped the US. And we're not even at the turn yet of this opening morning. But, I mean, for Bjorn in Europe, they'll be looking around going, this is going unbelievably well. Yeah. This is going really well.
And Olesen has just missed a fairly decent effort at a putt as well to put Europe up in 3. From what you're seeing so far, I think it was yourself that mentioned yesterday about how each nation, as much as we all obviously get behind the collective European Union thing, we're all looking at our own. How's Rory going?
Oh, Rose and Ram have got 2 up.
Ram.
Oh, take that away, Joe, yeah?
So through 8, Rose and Ram have gone 2 up on Koepka and Finau in match 1. So that's phenomenal stuff. John Ram, I know Nathan mentioned to you earlier on, for people who didn't catch it, Ram and Rose first out, the cool head of Rose and the fire of the rookie Ram. So he's hold this, it's a great putt, it's 10-footer, it's a slider left to right, it's fist bumps, lots of Spanish flags come up behind him. Ram, when he's hitting his tee shot, he got the crowd going, Nathan was saying to you earlier. And when it was time to hit the ball, Rose turned around and said, shush to everyone. And then Ram's caddy, clearly briefed by Ram, turned around and said, no, let's go. We said yesterday he could be one who could do something across this Ryder Cup, and he settled in lovely. So, 2 up. As for Rory, you asked about Rory. No birdies so far. You know, it's Olsen who's weighed in with the 2 birdies in their team to match the 2 birdies of Johnson and Fowler. Johnson has 1 birdie, Fowler has a birdie, Olsen has a birdie, so nothing from McIlroy. I haven't seen a huge amount of him, but I suppose it's in keeping with his general play. The first hole summed up his season. Torbjorn Olsen went into the water in the first hole. McIlroy split the fairway. Beautiful shot, very Rory McIlroy-esque. And then he had a wedge in hand. He should have got the ball closer to the hole, left himself about 12 feet, and the putt never looked likely. Tap in for a par, off he goes. And, you know, that's where his game is at the moment. And it was interesting yesterday. He said if Michael Bannon, you know, has coached him all his life, Pete Cowan, who's coached Henrik Stenson and worked with Harrington, you know, kind of regarded along with Butch Harmon as the best coach in the world. It was Pete Cowan yesterday stood behind McIlroy at the driving range, which was kind of an unusual development. So, look, I mean, he could explode to life. He's the kind of player who might roll in 5 birdies in a row, so you're not going to write him off. But thus far, if you're asking how McIlroy's done this far, he's been lukewarm.
Have you seen any golf? Is the big question.
I mean, we're on the first tee, so we saw the 4 groups going through, and we followed yesterday the Woods, Reed. God, it's mad. I can't remember who was on it. Spieth, Thomas. It's just the Tiger Woods group, and then 3 other lads. So we followed them for a practice hole, and it was good. I mean, to be honest, the only way to cover this tournament properly is to sit here and watch it on a TV beside Nathan Murphy, who refuses to stop eating cheese and onion crisps. I can smell him from here. Joe, fist bump.
Good work. On that note, lads, I'm not quite sure what's going on. On that note, fist bump it out. Don't leave me hanging. That's for you. Right, let's go. Joe, thanks a million. Talk to you later on. Joe and Nathan there. I mean, I'm going to say that was more cringeworthy than my effort earlier on.
Oh my God, this is just like dad jokes times 1,000 right now.
Ryder Cup coverage is brought to you in association with Now TV. Only pay for the days that you want and stream all 10 Sky Sports channels with a Now TV Sky Sports Pass. And it is that sort of quality that you can expect from our Ryder Cup coverage over the course of the weekend.
I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but John Ram already the Ryder Cup GOAT.
Yeah,
just made for this. Absolutely. When he was born, it was immediately christened that he would become the greatest Ryder Cup player of all time. In terms of character, in terms of power, in terms of his exact game that is suited to a course like this as well. John Ram, a Ryder Cup star, is born already, and you know it's not even too early to say that.
I mean, I did say that that happened on first tee earlier on when he sort of this rookie, we're not sure what's going to happen, and actually he's lapping it up.
He was the first one to do it as well. On the first tee.
Yeah. So I called it before you won, is what I'm saying.
Well, you know, we all can't be as enlightened as you, Adrian.
That is a good point. Speaking of enlightenment, Darren Cleary, what have you got for us? I mean, do you want me to do? Have you got the Ryder Cup scores there? We want to recap of that.
Yeah, if you've got the Ryder Cup scores.
Let me do a quick recap. So it's Europe up in 2 matches. The top match and the bottom match. So it's Rose and Ram 2 up against Finau and Koepka. It's Molinari and Fleetwood 1 up against Tiger Woods and Patrick Reed. What an outcome that would be, by the way. Plenty of golf left to play. Only 5 played in that bottom match. It's all square in the second match between McIlroy and Olsen up against Dustin Johnson and Ricky Fowler. They're through 7, and through 6 are Paul Casey and Trell Hatton, who are 2 down against the US pairing of Thomas and Spieth. So that's the state of play.
Yeah, an electric atmosphere though awaits the guys who come out in the afternoon. It took the Sky Sports commentators a grand total of 90 seconds before they were tut-tutting and noting the shame of people being booed early on. Bubba Watson not involved this morning. He's battling a sinus infection, but the American is relishing his chance to get off to a good start. He admits he's been warned though not to encourage fans.
I'm looking forward to it. It's amazing. I've been told that I can't get the crowd to rev up though because it's an iron off the tee. It's a lot easier when it's a driver off the tee, but this whole, this is a different golf course, different setup, and so this is going to be one that you're not going to, I don't want to get revved up trying to hit a bullet off the tee and fat it, 20 yards down the fairway, so I don't want to do that. So they told me I can't do it this time.
Yes, the Ryder Cup dominating the sporting discourse, but UCD look to spring a bit of an upset here at home in the soccer in the FAI Cup. They hope to derail Dundalk's hopes of a double when they meet in the semi-final of the competition later. The students head to Oriel Park. Having secured promotion from the First Division last week, Dundalk need just a single point to wrap up the title, but they will have tired legs having played in the league on Tuesday night against Derry. The action begins in that one at 7:30. Well, Ger O'Brien will take charge of St. Pat's for the Leinster Senior Cup final. They face the reigning champion Shelbourne at Tolka Park. The former Saints captain has been placed in temporary charge following the departure of Liam Buckley earlier this week. Well, in the papers today, Jack Grealish has
huge opportunity here at the 8th for Europe. Rory McIlroy is the only golfer of the 4-ball on the dance floor. Everybody else is tailed off to the left. Rory went to the right of the flag, and as expected, it stayed up. It's going to be a really tough putt to actually get a birdie there, but a birdie will win that hole, you suspect. Although Joe, from his reporter, there's been 2 chip-ins already this morning, so I wouldn't say that with too much confidence at the moment, but Rory in prime position here.
That's an unbelievable shot by Justin Thomas, by the way, there, out of a very difficult stance and a very difficult, it looked like a difficult lie as well. Gets his ball in close as Tiger Woods, who's, as he tends to be, not quite on the fairway here, and chips into about sort of 5-6 feet by the looks of things.
A really nice shot there from Woods. Jack Grealish, though, has opened up on his disappointment over his failed transfer to Tottenham Hotspur in the summer. He was the subject of a €30 million bid from Spurs, but Villa's new majority owners blocked that move. He signed a new 5-year deal at Villa Park this week and noted, "Of course, I'm disappointed. They've beaten Manchester United 3-0 at Old Trafford. They're playing Barcelona in the Champions League next week. I felt that if I'd gone there, I could have maybe been in the England squad by the end of the year." From one wannabe England international to another, and Declan Rice has been offered a new deal by West Ham. The Daily Telegraph report that the new offer will be the final one made to the London native. Negotiations have been ongoing for months. The latest deal rejected reported to be an offer of €15,000 a week plus €20,000 for every Premier League match that Rice starts. Their final offer for the 19-year-old is thought to be in the region of €40,000 a week.
He's got to take that. He's going to.
So. He's probably gone in a year's time anyway. That's the reality, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one hell of an offer for a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Big deal for him. One more story to bring you. It's about Aaron Ramsey and his talks for a new deal with Arsenal. They've apparently broken down, according to reports this morning. He's out of contract next summer. Has been unable to agree terms over a fresh deal at the Emirates. Reports suggest that a deal was on the table, and after he rejected that, they decided they would not be offering a new one and pulled that one. The Wales international will be able to sign a pre-contract agreement with any club from January 1st or leave Arsenal as a free agent in the summer.
Cheers, Darren.
I'm actually suffering here today. This is torture just watching all this. I'm not fist pumping anybody anymore. Like I'm done with the whole fist pump culture. Wow. It's just been okay, go on.
Listen, everybody's got to crumble. Everybody's got to crumble eventually. Even millennials are going to get into the action on. That's this morning's story. Darren, thanks, Billy, for that. Kieran Donaghy's basketball camp in association with Sport Endorse is filling up quickly. You can see all the details there on your screen. He was in with us last week to talk about his retirement from inter-county football. He spoke to Ger. He also spoke about the state of Irish basketball. Take a look.
Where are we? Because it seemed like a couple of years ago we were entering like a new dark age, and all of a sudden it seems like the green shoots are right there.
Yeah, it's a basketball person in Ireland knows is loving life at the moment, and it's really skyrocketed. Probably a few factors in it, like, you know, it was struggling. I remember my first basketball camp. There was, you know, the numbers were very small, and I was kind of going, geez, the kind of love of the game is gone here. Like, if this was around 10 years ago, you'd have a load of kids. And in my second year, it just went through the roof, and it's been kind of going like that since. And I just think it's how visible it is online. It's how close the NBA players feel to you, because they're all on your phones. You're watching them playing. You're watching the highlights. And, you know, when I was young, you were getting a tape of 4 games that was sent from America that was transferred onto an Irish tape. That the game was about 4 months old, and you were watching it like it happened last night. So I think the availability, and I think the excitement, and I think the athletic ability of our players in Ireland now is through the roof. Like the underage teams of 16 and 17-year-olds, and they're dunking over people in European championships. And the European Championship games are exciting to watch, and I think Basketball Ireland are doing a great job streaming games. And, you know, I even know the likes of yourselves reporting on games, getting the scores out there on the Saturday night, because, you know, all them things help the game and help sponsorship and help get people to invest in the game of basketball, because everything needs money, as we well know. There's more money in the country now. I remember when we were starting up the Warriors a few years ago, you were trying to get people to take a punt on us, but the cute ones saw that, it's on the way back, this might be a good thing, and might be a good thing to be a part of. So, look, it's made a great recovery, but we have to mind it.
Yeah, it's still all going off at the Ryder Cup, Eoin.
Yeah, as Joe Malloy would say, Jordan Spieth's putter is on fire. It's hot right now, I think is another way of putting it. It's quite temperate, I would say, and he has landed another Monster Putt. They're flying. They're going to win their match. That's probably the most clear-cut of all the matches. Europe are obviously leading in 2 of the other 3. The other one is all square. The one that is all square is Rory McIlroy's clash. He missed that opportunity for birdie at the moment. Just waiting for cameras to cut back to ensure that he will get another opportunity to win the hole. It seems that nobody managed to chip in from the rough, because remember, all the other 3 balls in that 4 ball went to the left of the green and into the rough. So we'll wait to see how that develops. But it's looking like a good sign for Rory McIlroy here.
Agreed to half the hole from about 8 feet. Rattles it down. It's in the bottom match, an important putt that there with their opponents 1 up there, Molinari and Fleetwood. They're through 6 now, Reed and Woods.
Yeah, so it's looking encouraging for you at the moment.
It is, yeah. They're up in 2, down in 1 and all square in the other. Jersey clash. This is actually, you just gave a lep there when Spieth rattled in that, whatever it was, 20-footer. It is actually, it's been a feature of Ryder Cup for as long as I can remember. Could they not just put a bit of thought into doing opposite colours?
Yeah, they could. Like, one could go white, one could go red.
Yeah, because the difficulty is that they probably do that, and then once a bit of rain comes in, they put the rain jacket on, suddenly it's like, or they need to put the jumper on.
Yeah.
It
tends to, you can kind of remember some of the really ugly sort of kits that they used to have, like the Battle of Brookline, the polo shirts that the USA were wearing on that occasion were absolutely disgusting, to be quite honest with you, and perhaps gives them a competitive advantage because they were so bad to look at, that maybe that they could look into something like that, like recreating some of those really awful polo shirts. But it's Navy against Navy right now, and it's quite confusing.
As long as they're not wearing Kerry jerseys, we're all sort of on board with that.
Your Kerry sort of tirade this morning has just been as weird as your fist-pumping brigade.
A reminder that Brian O'Driscoll is back on your radios and on your TVs and on your digital platforms and all that stuff this evening. We're going to have much more Ryder Cup from the lads, from Joe and Nathan, who are there right over the course of the weekend, so stay tuned for all of that. The Crappy Quiz is back after a 2-week hiatus, so who's going to be competing in the Crappy Quiz?
Yourself, Tommy Rooney and JP Gilbert.
Left field.
Left field, yeah.
Tommy must be feeling confident.
He must be. He has to be. JP throwing himself in there.
Busy weekend. Busy weekend as well on the Premier League commentary front. Here's what we've got for that. This is on Off the Ball on News Talk on Sunday. It's Cardiff up against against Burnley there. Doesn't actually, I was trying to read back. Look, to be fair, Jeff Hendrick is on the picture. If I just looked at that might have been pretty damn obvious. Ian Beach and Alan McLaughlin on duty there for that game. That is an Off the Ball and News Talk on Sunday. But that's pretty much it from Eoin and from myself this morning. We're going to leave you with this, an interesting one. Irish eventing team made headlines earlier this month as they won a silver medal at the World Equestrian Games, qualifying for Tokyo 2020 in the process. One of their stars, Sarah Ennis, joined us in studio yesterday around the announcement from the Olympic Federation of Ireland that FBD Insurance are to sponsor Team Ireland through to 2020.
All right, world silver medalist Sarah Ennis is with me in studio. How are things?
Very well, thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
What does it sound like to be a world silver medalist just on a constant basis now? It's kind of one of those tags that they can never take off you at this point.
Yeah, really strange. Like, even when you say it there, it's like, God, I've got a silver medal. I don't think it's really sunk in yet, but yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah, it was a very interesting event, just kind of following it throughout. And correct me if I'm wrong here, but going into the last day, obviously you had your own personal ambitions in terms of a medal on the last day, but ultimately the team wasn't depending on you to kind of absolutely knock it out of the ballpark in the last day anyway. You were kind of assured team-wise of a medal. How does that change things from your perspective? Does it go in and take pressure off a little bit because other people aren't depending on you? Or is it just more pressure because there is that pressure for you ultimately individually?
Well, we knew individually I was lying in bronze, but ultimately I did want a team medal. I did want a medal for everyone because it's nicer to spread the joy. But going in, Padraig had already jumped, so we knew we had bronze. We had a medal of a colour, but so it was hard to go in and jump because I kind of wanted to start celebrating that we'd actually finally won a medal, and that was amazing. But I suppose the pressure was lifted a bit, but it was still lovely to go in and jump a clear round on the last day, and that's always ultimately your goal. But my horse had struggled through the trot up a little bit. He pulled the shoe cross country, and this is what kind of happens to him. And we were prepared for it. and he was a little bit feely, but I was really unlucky. He started off jumping the most amazing round, and I actually felt quite happy with the track. Sometimes I go in and I walk it and I pick a line that I'm just not particularly happy with, and say you could take either or with it, and I hate going in with a doubt in my mind or a question in my mind. I love going in and knowing this is what I'm going to do, and I have a definite plan. And I actually went in quite happy, and I suppose it was a nice feeling going in and knowing we did have a medal no matter what. Even if I didn't finish, if I fell off in the arena, we still had a medal. But I liked the track, and my horse jumped the first fence. Once you get over the first one, you kind of settle into it. And he really gave me the feeling that he was never going to touch a pole.
Sure.
He's such a trier. But in the middle of the treble, he actually jumped in really well. It was fence 5. And he just kind of pecked. Now, whether he felt something or, I don't know, hit the sand wrong. And he hit the middle part. And I suppose for a fraction of a second, my heart kind of sank a little bit. And I was like, oh, no. And I was like, no. He is trying his little heart out. So, we upgraded to a silver with the 4 faults. So, and we actually, as a team score, only counted 4 faults, and the Great Britain had 8 faults, and France had 12 faults. So we actually posted a really good show jumping score, which is brilliant and a brilliant reflection on our trainer.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, the thing is as well, when you mentioned the track, like, this was on in North Carolina, which obviously got battered with horrendous weather there recently. And I do wonder, when the Irish go abroad, do you kind of look at the high winds and think, right, this is going to suit us down to the ground?
Well, Sam Watson was doing a dance going out in the rain. He's like, bring it on. We are so used to it.
Yeah.
We'd go out at an event and it might rain from the moment you take the first horse out, and you may have 5 to ride, and you come back like a drowned rat.
Right.
So, we're used to it, and our horses are used to it. So it didn't bother him at all. I don't particularly like riding in the rain. I rather if it's not raining, but I can cope with it. And actually, I went out and I was terrified if it was raining that my gloves would get slippy on the reins. So I actually went up to, my sponsor was there, Horseware, and I actually went up and bought a special pair of grippy gloves. So I was prepared for the rain.
Yeah.
And I was going to drive through it. But we were lucky. The rain actually, it just kind of rained a bit and then held off. And once we were finished, it started to rain. So their timing actually was unreal, because they actually, originally the horses would go out in 4-minute intervals, and they brought it back to 3, so we would be finished before the rain. And all worked really well.
So it was kind of more of an intense process then. There was kind of less time to gather yourself and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, the cross-country day happened a lot faster than sometimes it would. And you'd less time. Like, I was out near the end, so my time went from closer to 4 o'clock to closer to 2 o'clock, and I was like, oh no, I won't have much time to walk around. And I wanted to see horses ride all the lines to get the confidence to know my route. And until you go out the start box, you're still kind of thinking. There was a couple of lines I was wondering about, but the cross-country day happened a little faster than we'd originally planned.
The thing from this now is that you're qualified for Tokyo 2020, the first Irish team, I think, in any sport to qualify for the Olympics. The difference, though, is that it's a different event. It's only 3 people who are going to make the team for Tokyo. So I dare say there's going to be no complacency in the Ireland camp for the next few months or years.
Not at all, no. We all, although we've qualified a team, we all individually have to fight for those spots. So
how's that going to work? How's the selection process?
It'll be a selection as it was for the World Games. You're starting at 0 again. You have to go out, you have to post very good individual results, and it'll be taken off those. So this won't count. So that's really hard, and unfortunately I don't think my horse will be 1 for Tokyo. He'll then be 16, and I think it'll be a little bit past him, so I have to find new blood.
Right, okay.
And try and get them qualified. So.
And how does that process work then? How do you go on to look at it? Is it going to be used? Is there a big onus on you to basically identify what horse you might take to Tokyo?
Well, I could identify lots of horses that would go to Tokyo, but I wouldn't be able to afford them.
Sure.
So at this late stage, you've only got 2 years, so you need an older horse, and the older horse are worth a lot of money at this stage. So I do have one in my yard, which I dearly hope I can hang on to or syndicate out to keep him in my yard. And he's 9 now, so 11 would be 11 to 14 is like they're in their prime, and it's the perfect age for a championship horse. So he's actually had a very good year so far, and he's heading off to Holland now to do the longer format, which will hopefully qualify him for the Europeans next year.
Right, okay, that's very interesting because if money was no object, the hard part obviously is the identification of the horse, but you've got that bit down when it comes to this horse, so ultimately it's the easy bit, and I've very much said that in inverted commas, of actually affording it. Explain to us that. Who do you have to pay to make sure that that horse is coming with you to Tokyo if you're going to Tokyo?
The owners.
Yeah.
This horse has been in my yard now for 5 years. I know him very well, and he's a fabulous horse. But they're originally put into me to produce and sell, and I am fine with that. I've sold loads of them, and if this one has to be sold, well, I don't come against the owners. I'll be delighted for them. They've earned it. But equally, I think they would actually be delighted to hang on to him if we could keep him in the country.
Right.
So if there was some way of getting an investor in, or creating a syndicate and just spreading it, because they are expensive, so it's hard to get one person to buy a horse or even half a horse. But ideally we'd get them to stay in the country, but it's the money. Like, we breed and produce the best horses in the world, and all the other countries are winning on our horses, but it'd be great if we could just keep a few more of them so we could bring home more medals.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
You're depending on a bit of the generosity of the owner, I'd imagine, here, just to be a little bit more patient?
Oh, hugely.
Yeah.
Hugely. Like, they have to... when you own a horse, it's a massive roller coaster ride. Like, you're on a high one minute, and then the horse might injure itself another minute, and it's a brilliant trip, but sometimes it can be very hard. But I'm very lucky with all my owners. I have an extremely nice yard of owners, and they're so helpful and supportive and generous. They're unreal, and they make the journey so much nicer.
Yeah.
So, these owners in particular are very nice people, extremely nice people, and we get on very well, and they love the horse dearly. But he was bought as an investment to turn over, so...
And naturally, you can't be too disappointed if they want to follow that through, but...
No, I completely understand.
How much, when it comes to government funding, can be helped in your situation here? Would it need a huge increase in the amount of funding you receive from the government to allow this horse to come with you to Tokyo, or is it just different stratosphere altogether?
Yeah, we'd need a lot of funding, because this year we fundraised to raise the money to get ourselves and our horses out to try on.
Yeah, so I saw.
We did about 4 or 5 demo days, which were great crack. It brought the team very close together. So that was all good, but no, we need a fairly massive injection, I think, of money to get this going.
Right, so we're basically an investor is what we're talking here.
Yeah.
Right, it seems to be the way for a lot of Olympic sports. I guess the positive here is that you're the first ones qualified, that ultimately there is a definition there. It's like you're definitely going to be in Japan.
Yeah, hopefully that'll help us.
Yeah.
The silver medal, usually if you win the medal, other things will follow. So that will be really good.
Yeah.
So, because it's very exciting.
Yeah, it certainly is. It's also exciting being a world silver medalist. Congratulations on everything, Sarah. Very best of luck with that situation over the next couple of years. I really hope you manage to get the money required to keep that horse.
Thank you very much.
OTB AM.
Thanks to Screwfix.ie, championing the trade with a dedicated call centre.